Through the prayers of Holy Fathers, Lord Jesus Christ, our God, have mercy on us and save us. Amen. For those who are new here, my name is Father Joseph Sladen. Tonight we are doing a live Q&A, and I will definitely go into that in just a moment. We do have a guest here today, and I want to present him on the screen here. Just give me a moment. Bishop Enoch, can you hear me?
Yes, Christ is risen.
Truly is risen.
God bless.
Yeah, we have we haven't had Bishop Enoch on in a while. He is increasingly busy these days, just in terms of all sorts of things that are going on. You may notice that we got this cool thing, even though, member chats get, of course, Father Boniface Benedicite, member chats do get on the screen. There is a new feature which apparently shows all the comments on the screen live. So we'll be able to put them on and focus. Good evening. I don't know, maybe our heads are too big for this. Give me just my head's too big for this.
God bless, Father Antonius.
So we're gonna shrink them because I think it's I thought maybe more movement on the screen would be better, but now it just looks like my giant head is taking up half the screen. So not gonna do that. So today is a live Q&A. My thinking on the matter was very simple. I have generally always thought about working harder, not smarter, but what happens when you work harder and smarter? So now I'm putting on a second stream. I don't know if Monday is the perfect day for it, but we're going to be doing more tests to get more live call-ins. Of course, as you know, anyone can call in live just using the link at the top of the chat for questions, comments, challenges, etc. Michael asks, where's Brenda? No idea.
God bless.
And Father Boniface asked for a blessing. Lydia Enoch came from a blessing. So yeah, this is we're trying this out. We'll see how it's going to work.
By the way, if I can't see if something shows up on the screen, I might not be able to see it. I don't have my glasses with me, so you're going to read it for me.
All right. Well,
I can kind of see stuff, but I'm sorry.
Saba says, Vladico Blagoslovit, Christos Voskresce.
God bless, truly he is risen.
Okay, and so we've gotten our opening comments, covered. So today, there's always stuff going on. I am kind of amazed at just how much stuff there is to keep up with. That's right, Saba. Only 2 more days we can say Christ is risen. After that, once he's ascended, clearly, he's ascended. He's not just risen. So, so today there's been a couple of interesting things that have been going on. There was apparently a news article. I don't know if you saw this, Vladik. I'm going to put it up on the screen. But there was apparently a news article in I don't know if it was the Washington Post or where it was. Hold on. I got to look up masculine orthodoxy in Twitter. And I'll go through it. But this is pretty interesting because it's like a ROCOR MP is just shooting itself in the foot at this point. Okay, let me see here if I can find it. But, all right, I got to go to latest. Apparently, it was and I want to get the news article. Let's see. Okay, I am looking for this. Give me just a moment. And I should have been a little more prepared on this. This came up. Hold on. All right. So let's see if I can find it. Yeah, here we go. Well, that's the picture from it. Okay, and I'm trying to see if I can just get to that. Here, I'll let people into my searching process while I'm doing this. Christ is risen, BBC. Where's Big Brendan? Guys, Big Brendan's not coming on today, okay? At least I don't think so, unless he decides to. So I'm going to just put this on, and I am trying to find the article where this picture comes from. And so I was looking up, I tried, let me see if, I'm going to try Father John Whiteford. He was featured in it, so he probably put it up. Let's see here. What? All right.
I did watch a little bit of the replay of your stream from last night.
Oh, what did you think?
I didn't really watch the one with the mentally ill person in it a lot because I let you handle that. But I did watch near the end when you were going to briefly review the video by this Roman Catholic fellow.
Yeah.
I should tell you, he is not a set of a contest. I could see right away because he was talking about Pope Leo the 14th and being legitimate pope and legitimate patriarchs. And what I always find interesting is like the Vatican. These people who think they're traditionalist Roman Catholics and they're part of the Vatican and they want to attack Orthodoxy as schismatic. It's very odd, when papism is a super ecumenical with these people they're calling heretics and schismatics and such. It's very so I always find that kind of weird.
Yeah,
but it's almost but then the other side to that is papists saying who is canonical and who is not non-canonical Orthodox. You know what I mean? It's even doubly strange from them. So
hold on. Michael says that's the article, Father. Unfortunately, if you send me links through the comments, unless I send the link as a mod, the link won't appear. Can you? I can't see it.
What's the name of the article?
Okay, it was the BBC, so that should help. BBC. Hold on. Okay, let's try.
Yeah, young men joining Russian church promising absurd levels of manliness. I see it right here.
What can you say? Can you share the link?
In private chat, I guess, right here.
Yeah.
Here you
go. Okay. So let's do this. So this is an article that came out 2 days ago. And there's Father Moses featured. And of course, it's talking about Father Moses. There's a few people who are known in the orthosphere. Okay, I don't know Theodore, but I guess he weightlifts with Father Moses. There's Father John as mentioned, Father John Whiteford, Buck Johnson, people who know him from YouTube or otherwise. I feel like this picture is stretched. It makes like Father John look like he's 9 feet tall, and I'm pretty sure he's shorter than me. And not much, like 2 inches.
So, are we gonna read it, or are you just gonna? I mean, what's the article about? I haven't read it or anything.
Okay, well, basically, what it's about is young men joining the MP, I guess, to become big and strong because they don't have much of a sometimes they don't have father figures, sometimes they're not sure about their life. They become Orthodox and want to get jacked up and big. Okay. Okay. That sounds like a weird. It's a weird kind of thing.
Well, I mean, there are a lot of Protestants and Roman Catholics who sort of do the similar stuff, right? I mean, they
right.
I mean, if you want to lift weights and fine, to me that's fine. I don't really have a
yeah. Well, here's the thing about it though. Watch this. This is where I said. Remember, I said Roker MP is shooting itself in the foot.
Okay.
They just do that all the time. Apparently, yesterday. We're going to share this. Bishop Irenaeus of Steenberg of Europe or something apparently decided to put a encyclical letter out condemning this.
Okay. Well, can you increase? I cannot.
I can. Let me
either read it or make it a lot bigger. Okay, that's good.
Right. Okay. So this was done. This was on Sunday. So I guess this was probably his sermon on Sunday where he's condemning all this stuff. And I mean, if you want to read it, you can. It's up to you.
What exactly is he saying in it? Where's the big point he gets?
Well, the big point is I do want to say something that's in response directly to something in the press. As of this morning, there's an article that has been published in mass media. It's on the radio and so on about the Russian church, particularly in America, but broadly about the church abroad, and talks about the church in terms of people seeking, quote, masculinity and a, quote, conservative environment and a political environment that's different from the, quote, liberal world around them. And I feel it's necessary to say something in light of this to all of you who are here. It doesn't overly blah, blah, blah. I'm going to skip that paragraph. I'm not overly concerned about what the media thinks of us. However, I'm concerned about what you think of us. That is to say what each Orthodox person understands about the church. We live in a culture where too many people, including our own in the church, turn to the media, whether it be traditional or social media or other things, and they think they will find some accurate echo of the church's teaching. this almost never happens. Okay, especially in social, but in tradition, almost always. What's presented as a distortion, a mischaracterization, intentional otherwise, and not a safe place to gain an understanding of the church's teaching. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, young men
What is he
converting.
saying? And if I want to say that if you're here because you think that's where we are here to do, you are full. This is stupidity. Masculinity, so far as I'm aware, is I mean, is that accurate? What is the Greek word for masculinity? Something like andros,
Yeah,
something. I
it
mean,
just means manliness.
manliness may. I have a feeling that the word manliness is used, in fact, in Byzantine hymnography when talking about women saints who, for example, I think there are hymns that say things like, "Oh, she displayed a manliness as a martyr" or something like that.
Yeah,
I do
right.
find
There have been manly examples of women in the lives of the saints.
yes.
So it's funny. Oh, Father Boniface has joined the stream. Hold on. Welcome, Father Boniface.
Benedicite, bless Vladica.
God bless. Christ is risen.
He is risen indeed. Go ahead, keep on going.
Okay.
This is going to be interesting.
Yeah. So this is kind of hilarious. Because the thing is that, okay, so first off, Bishop Irenaeus is wrong, because manliness and femininity are things that have existed since the beginning of time, and the church has had things to say about them. It's so
and remember,
this is,
Saint Paul in his epistles deprecates men who behave in effeminate ways.
Yep.
For example.
And so,
okay, you just continue.
Okay, I'll continue. So what were we up to? But because the world has lost sight of the basis of what it means to be human, it is forced to respond to the lack of clarity as pushed on itself by fostering these terms of femininity, masculinity, and so on. None of this has anything to do with the teaching of Jesus Christ. This church proclaims a simple reality that Jesus Christ is our Savior. All of us discover what it means to be a human being, what it means to be a human person. This is like feminist language, kind of mixed into his kind of anthropology. And this is to live according to the gospel after the image of Christ. If you have lost sight of what it means to be a man in this strange world, or if you have lost sight of what it means to be a woman in this strange world, this is hardly surprising. This world is more confused about these simple concepts than about almost anything else. So if you're here because you are confused and wish to find sanity and normality in the teaching of Christ, God bless you, and may we, by God's mercy, be of some help. But if you are here because you think this is a place where you can reinforce some cultural masculinity, if you're here because you think this is a place to rebel against what you see going on politically around you or socially around you, please keep on going.
Let me
go
stop here for a second. So,
yeah.
If what that specific culture teaches about masculinity is in concord with the church, it's fine. If what you're rebelling against is a false political view that contradicts the church, then you're not rebelling. You're rebelling against that and obeying God. So it also depends upon what they mean by masculinity and by a political environment or social social environment around you. And it seems to be the article. I haven't read it, so you didn't read the original article, so I had to briefly see things through it. It was saying that what people were reacting to the feminization, the transgender stuff, and to the left-wing leftism. All right. Yeah. So is he saying that it's it's not right to be against? I'm because it seems to me that he's putting himself in opposition to that.
My question is why? I mean, sometimes Father Moses has occasionally gone too far. He tried to make a video that looked like a Mr. Beast video, which was ridiculous. He occasionally crosses the line from priest to entertainer, but for the most part, going to the gym isn't not virtuous. I don't go to the gym, but I do recognize that people who do it for their health, and to be, stronger, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just when it goes over to pride. So I don't understand, if he wanted to focus, and some people in the comments have even said this, and now that comments can apparently be seen on the screen, obviously my power to just read comments has been taken away. I can't do that, but I can still only put up comments that interest me. Well, all of your comments interest me to some degree, but also I don't have to put them on the screen unless they are member comments. And so I'm gonna see what we got here. So if you're a member, you got that on the screen. That's okay. We do have this one, and we're gonna have more streams. We're gonna get better at this. Orthodox Traditionalist Publications had a stupid article, and then Rocor MP Bishop Irenaeus comes out with a counter article teaching against what Moses is actually putting out there, and that's what's so ridiculous. The issue of pride. I would say that's the most important thing. I don't know Father Moses. Maybe he is really proud. I don't know. To be very fair about Father Moses, he talks about orthodoxy in his sermons on the show compared to not talking about it at all. Right. And OTP counter, like when he told them to told people to take their kids to the local Protestant church for Halloween. That is awful. Wow. Okay, this is interesting. Saba says, unsurprising, there's even people in true Orthodoxy who think it's okay to celebrate Halloween. I ain't got no words, man. I don't think that's a good idea. John MC says, God bless you. And so, yeah, but this is funny because if Bishop Irenaeus' point is to kind of curb Father Moses's pride, this is really the worst way to do it because he's kind of globifying Orthodox anthropology in the process. And I don't know that that's necessarily a good idea, but we continue here.
Let's go down. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What are their only interested in the social political questions? What are your views on masculinity, on sexuality, on politics, on government, on war? Do not come here if those questions drive your life. Wait, the church has an opinion on all of these things. Like, yes. What's wrong with this?
I think it's sort of like people who say that let me give you an example. You cannot be an Orthodox Christian in good standing with the church if you believe in transgender surgery. Yeah. If you believe in gay marriage,
yeah.
If you vote for people who do that, and if you support political candidates that support legalized abortion, I've in fact had situations where I've had to tell people they can't take communion because they may say, not in confession, but I know from things they've said in public that they're personally pro-life, and they may wish pro-life politicians were in charge. But they have to vote for this Democrat candidate or something like that.
Right.
I said, no, I'm sorry, you can't do that. It's better you not vote at all. I don't vote. So, I mean, it's not like I'm trying to direct or something, this or that.
Well, yeah. I mean,
does have, in fact, positions where you cannot support evil things.
Yeah.
Publicly or privately.
Well, this is one of those things where, I mean, I have gotten heat for many of the political stances that I've taken in the past. But my big thing is that participation in the voter process is just part of I think it's just part of being an American. I have, when I have no good candidate, voted in myself or my family members. But I still think that's that's my view. I mean, obviously a lot of people don't agree with me on that. OTP responded to Saba with, I'm sure that's the case in reference to people celebrating Halloween in True Orthodoxy, but most True Orthodox didn't say that to 40,000 subs on YouTube, to which Saba said, fair enough.
So the church has views on masculinity, sexuality, politics, government, and war. It definitely historically has views. This is, I'm not sure. I mean, if they drive your life, the problem is this: you can't say you can, you can't say you can abstractly believe in, I don't know, the correct doctrine of the Trinity, but still believe in gay marriage.
Yeah.
Because if there's some strange, sick dichotomy about your life that needs to be fixed, if that's the case. So,
John MC says, "Is it?" Abortion. Oh, sorry about the political. I didn't mean to.
I said, either that or legalized abortion, or, and in fact, the church teaching is that monarchy, is particularly theocratic, autocratic monarchy, is the ideal form of government.
No.
So even if Saint Tikhon when he was Archbishop of America, permitted people to participate in American politics. It was the church was basis was that this was a pragmatic position, all right, not the position that theocratic autocratic monarchy was not the ideal for which we should all strive, and such. So,
very true.
Well, if I'd like to say something, I think also an issue here would be the idea of patriarchy, because that's a hot issue, and these guys in the the liberal, heterodox, orthodox church here are going to have a problem with that, because that's going against the grain of society these days, but it should be promoted.
Yep.
No, very true.
And remember what St. Paul says in 1 Corinthians 11, but I would have you know that the head of every man is Christ, and the head of the woman is the man, and the head of Christ is God. So there's a hierarchy within marriage. There's a hierarchy within the family, within marriage, with how masculinity and femininity are structured. So, I mean, those have to be integrated into your worldview as an Orthodox Christian, because they're integral to it. So,
yep.
With the false view of masculinity today, which is like, vain, bodybuilding and stuff like that, where it's like, and I'm going to refer back to your references on masculinity with, like the scripture says in Corinthians, quit you like men, acquit yourself. And when the women were martyred, they were manly, because they showed courage in the midst that they are the weaker sex, and that they overcame their weakness and did manly things by enduring great suffering, which, and so, asceticism is in a certain respect athletic, because the ascetic is doing, punishing the body and bringing it in subjection like an athlete does. And so this is the kind of masculinity that we want to promote.
Yes, I believe Saint Tekla, for example, was called manly. Not because they were trying to create some kind of weird ideology, but she was showing up men. You know what I mean? Yeah. So you have this 18-year-old, 19-year-old girl who gets persecuted and brutally treated, and she confesses Christ publicly. And many of the men are in cowardly situations, when they should be, they shouldn't be. And that's part of it. We're all called to follow Christ, and as it says in some of the ancient Latin hymnography, it talks about, there's a phrase called "play the man." All right.
Yep.
Be a man. All right. And that's so. Okay.
Now I do want to address a question. By the way, as always, I'm just going to say this: support the channel. We at NFTU need your help. Support us by subscribing or donating at nftu.net with various options like PayPal, Cash App, BTC, LTC, or XMR. Or on Give, Send, Go. Just look in the description. Now, John MC has an interesting question.
Well, real quick, I just want to compliment what Father Boniface mentioned.
Okay.
That there is, in fact, false masculinity where people think being a man is watching football or just lifting weights, or being like the bodybuilding jerk. I'm not saying Father Moses is, but I know there are people who react to that, and that's not true masculinity. It's not manly to be interested in watch sports all day, and to be not interested as a man in the world, in the civil environment. You should be concerned primarily with religious questions, and within that sphere of religious questions do flow how you think about society and government around you. All right. Yeah. That's true manliness. It's not. I mean, it's not to be everything's hockey or football or whatever stupid idea, or to be a fornicator. And these are things that take away from true manliness as it's defined by Christian. To
be fair, as a former heavy sports fan, there is a distinction between a sports fan and a fornicator.
Oh, okay, that's fine. I understand that, but I certainly have been in the grocery store in other cases where people talk about. I see guys and they're all just talking about football all the time. And you try to talk to them about like religious subjects or even something. They don't want to talk about it.
The low info,
exactly, because it's controversial. And they don't.
How about being responsible?
Yep.
Those kinds of things,
like what
fulfilling their duties as a father, as a husband, etc.
Stuff that all up into the 20th century mass culture that was identified within wider society as responsible manhood.
Yeah.
That no longer that's the case.
Now, John MC has kind of a question and kind of self-answered thing, but there's something worth mentioning here. It's a slightly off topic. But he says, is it just me, or am I somehow seeing more and more bizarre things coming from Orthodox exponents, quote unquote, and more why I left Christianity for Islam coming out of the woodwork on YouTube? Now, he says, I've found a simple remedy. I just shut the trash off. When I watch the usual suspects on Ortho live stream, they should pay me. I totally agree there on some cases. But what, not ours though, because we're useful. But anyway, the point is that one of the reasons that happens is because YouTube's algorithm is designed to keep people watching at YouTube as long as possible. So if you see one why you left Christianity for Islam video from some random ortho bro that apparently converted, and you make the mistake of clicking and watching it, YouTube will assume you want to see more of it. I never see converts to Islam on my stream because I watch a lot of anti-Islamic apologetics. So the algorithm pretty much knows that I'm not going to click on why I left Christianity for Islam, but like people who have become a little closer. Muslims probably see that all day long, and that's why they think, oh, Christianity is falling. Everyone's becoming Muslim. No, everyone's not becoming Muslim or even close. But because it becomes a reinforcing feedback loop, that's why you'll see it. If you click one, it'll encourage you to click more, assuming that's what you want to watch. And, some of those are very popular because, frankly, Muslims, are there. Oriental Orthodox says, hello from Orthodox Christian. Reclam Keys Orthodox says, we back. Yes, we are. We are trying Monday to see if this works for a regular show day. So I don't know. Go ahead.
Just by the way, I just looked up the verse in First, 2 Kings 10:12, which would be 2 Samuel 10:12 in the Protestant Bibles. Joab, who was one of the generals of King David's army when he was fighting a war against, I think the Ammonites, the children of Ammon, he said, to the Israelite soldiers, said, be of good courage, and let us play the men for our people and for the cities of our God. And the Lord do that which seemeth him good. So, there is no contrast between true manhood and godliness.
Yeah.
Manhood without godliness turns into things like pride and arrogance and just base sinfulness and things like all other things without godliness. So, okay.
Yeah. So no, it's very true. So let's just see if there's anything left of this. This to me is a terrible letter from Irenaeus, who, frankly, I personally wonder whether I've often thought that he was an FSB plant. I can't prove it.
Wasn't he supposed to be the ultra conservative there who
right? But he gets so extreme that he causes people to leave.
It's the Seraphim of Perea syndrome. I've seen this before.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Yep, very much so. He's the Rokor and Peace Seraphim of Perea. If you come to this place because you think it's the spot to find a political ideology that matters, please don't stay. Well, okay, just keep on throwing people out. That's cool.
Go back. What does he say right after that? I can't.
Let me see.
It's stupidity to think that there is any government anywhere, be it in Russia, be it in America, be it in Europe, be it anywhere, whose teaching can be aligned with those of the Orthodox Church. Now, he is correct there.
Yeah.
There is that. I think there are people who constantly think that the Russian Federation government is like secret theocratic orthodoxy, and Putin is going to bring back the czar, or he's going to be
right. But to be fair, that's like the standard Moscow patriarchate position.
Yes.
And unfortunately, I mean, maybe he's saying it out of just sheer conscience, perhaps. But considering where he is, it sounds more to me like he's just trying to, shoo these people away.
Give the benefit of the doubt. Are we sure there aren't some weirdo type people going to his churches that are?
There probably are. There's probably lots of them
that he's having to deal with, and is that maybe? I mean, I don't know. Okay. I'm sorry. I don't want to talk too much.
No. I think that's a good point. That maybe he is really writing this out of conscience, and he's a prisoner of conscience. I just don't believe it.
Let's find out. Let's continue. What's the next?
All right, that's fine. Okay. So, if you're seeking to find a place to come where you can compare a right-leaning ideology against a left-leaning ideology, go somewhere else. This is not the place to lean right or left, but to point up towards the kingdom of God. Left and right, these are totally worldly things. I tire of hearing them. I tire of being asked whether the church sides with one or another. Okay, so this maybe he's talking about possibly parish experience.
There is a certain sense in which I completely agree with what he says right here.
Yeah.
Okay.
We
because obviously someone can, there's a certain sense in which terms left and right don't have a lot of meaning in many contexts.
Yep.
But certainly in the cultural moral sphere, they still do have a major context, at least in the Anglosphere. And maybe not everywhere. I mean, because obviously you can go to, like continental European societies, like conservative parties had welfare states. So some of it may not apply, but certainly in the moral, social value issues, they all apply.
And Saba has an interesting take. He said, I was having this discussion with someone earlier today about orthodoxy in politics. There's a legitimate issue of people who don't want to abandon secular, political, or racial ideology before coming to orthodoxy. We get a lot of these who come through true Orthodox. I would not phrase it as go somewhere else, but rather that you should leave that at the door. And I would say that that's a pretty healthy way to go. And if you'd like to get your comments in big size on the screen instead of a tiny little box, become a member or drop a super chat. Memento Mori points, I'm looking for the most based in trad. Maybe that is what he's trying to avoid.
Well, there's always the problem is one of the fears is there's always going to be someone who's going to try to out-left you or outright you.
Yeah.
Into it, I know it's sort of the cringe thing. Talk about the horseshoe, but you can continue going right and right and right until you go around the circle, or left, and you can go down the circle.
Yep.
So there's a real sense in which we can say that the church has teachings on moral and political values that are timeless. They don't change. And that certain things we aren't going to compromise with.
Yeah, so I think
the church has no position upon a capital gains tax or something like that. Just who cares? To be frank, I mean, unless you have it just not. I'm not going to say much or anything about that. I just don't care about it. But the church has definitely something to teach about when life begins, and that the civil magistrates have the fundamental responsibility to protect the unborn, to protect elderly people from being euthanized, anybody from being euthanized, to be against abortion, to protect marriage and things like that.
Now, what about like something like the estate tax? Because the estate tax is a tax upon people's, upon people's homes, etc., that they want to pass on to their children. Here's how I look at it. Mm-hmm.
I'd have to look upon, I mean, I know people may not like this, but I'm going to have to look upon something like Byzantine law. And did they have that in Byzantine law?
No, they to my knowledge, no.
Okay.
And again, nothing's new, so it's very possible they did.
I'm willing to say that, very, very well, that could be something that shouldn't be. But that I could imagine a situation in which the king or the emperor or legitimate government may have some sort of a tax because of some emergency. Because
and
the state does have legitimate powers to tax. That doesn't mean, however, it would be moral for the state to say, give me 100% of your money so you can starve to death.
Right.
All right.
Absolutely.
They may have the power to do it, but they may not have the moral legitimacy to do it.
Well, I guess I'll have to do more research on that because I haven't actually.
I'm against the estate tax as you describe it. It's just I don't know how many sermons I can construct on it.
Right.
Necessarily, that's the problem.
Well, Chief Justice John Marshall said the power to tax is the power to destroy. So if you put a tax on property, whether it's 1% or higher, you have the ability to take a man's property away.
Yes.
Right.
And so, countries that do not have taxes on properties are basically free countries because the people are stable in their domain. So, we tax property and put the excuse of education on it. Because if you're against the property tax, you're against education, you're a terrible person. See, that's what they use.
Yes. And I think a lot of the ways they've organized taxation is probably a product of the last 200 years.
Yeah, it really is.
As the modern, I mean, they always had the state, but as the modern state comes about, with the advent of capitalism, and which is, capitalism not being a market, but the way it organized, financial markets and things like that.
All right. Saba, he writes, I hear that stuff all the time. I typically refrain from using the term liberal and conservative in context of orthodoxy as the terms become loose very fast. The people who seek the based and red-pilled things tend to find orthodoxy is not as based and red-pilled as they want it to be. And again, if you'd like to have your comments appear on the screen in large letters, you can always become a member. It's one of the perks of being a member, and I am working on other perks, but I haven't figured out any yet.
Right.
I thought Vladiki Enoch made a good point when he said that what kind of an influence is the church having upon this writer of the article. And to me, that says that you're in a feministic culture. You've got women who are empowered and who will come into your church and are going to want to promote their personal or the feminist agenda. And so if you oppose that, then you're looking at the loss of an offering, and you're looking at protests, maybe at a larger degree, and things can get really hot or snowball and things like that. And so when you're looking at patriarchy, fatherly headship, women in submission, oh boy, that can make some of these guys quite nervous.
Well, there's always one choice is to simply do what you should do. That if you have like crazy, like feminists making all these demands, if you're the bishop, just say, I'm sorry, stop, or you're excommunicated. And if they, we're going to make the parish council, well, we're going to have a battle then. How about that?
Now, I will say,
if you don't do that, then you get taken over. That's what happens.
Saba says, personal experience from my parish here in Louisiana, the red pill seeker types don't last too long. There have been a few comments since. Let me see here.
Now, I would say that they don't last that long unless they grow from that position into orthodoxy. Right?
Yeah, they have to kind of...
You can do that, but the problem is that oftentimes those people, when their worldview becomes modified with the truth, okay, and they start to see people around them who they interact with who don't want to accept that, and then they get accused of being, not red-pilled anymore, or not based, or something like that.
Yeah,
I've seen that on Gab or what have you.
Yeah.
And the result is you end up promoting just, crazy things because your friends promote crazy things, even if they're not true.
All right. So I want to touch on some non-member comments. Let's see here. Oriental Orthodox is inspiring yet saddening that the apostles, quote unquote, worked out their occasional doctrinal differences with reverence and subjugation to each other and therefore to Christ. Unlike divorces that occurred centuries ago that reverberate today, I kind of sense what you're talking about, but you're going to have to be more specific. John MC says, I hope and pray that those who wish to enforce strictures against euthanasia for others do not develop ALS. Sunrise says, hello, what's going on tonight? Let's see
what
here.
What did John MC said? He supports euthanasia, or I'm confused?
No, he's saying he hopes and pray that those who wish to enforce strictures against euthanasia for others do not develop ALS.
So we want to have strictures against.
We want to make sure that in other words, we want to hope that everyone who is against euthanasia stays healthy.
Yes,
but ALS is Lou Gehrig's syndrome.
Yeah, I know, but even it almost sounds like he's saying, well, you're against euthanasia, so I hope you don't get some terrible disease where you might want to get euthanized. I'm not sure that's almost what it sounds like.
That's unclear.
Yeah, that's not. He's got to clarify, because that's not a good direction at all. That's not a good statement.
Yeah,
it's sort of like saying, I hope it's sort of like the old liberal line about it's liberal or libertarian line about you can't be against abortion if you're not if you're a man or something like that. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's kind of you'd have to say more about it. It's kind of crazy.
Well, I had a city commissioner say, I'm against abortion, but I sure wouldn't want to be in that woman's shoes.
Yeah,
it
is odd. Oriental Orthodox says the worldly culture is so increasingly toxic that even churches are being pulled into their Luciferian indoctrination. Hold on to Orthodox faith. I was talking about the divisions in early church history. Yeah, I know. We do hold on to the Orthodox faith. That's why that's why we continue on.
It's just to bring up this point again. If somebody, and then bring it to like the Sergius thing. Okay, that's more Orthodox extreme, right? If somebody says, Sergius had a lot of pressure put on him, so he had to sign this. All right. Well, because they would have killed him otherwise. So I hope you're never in the position where you're going to be persecuted. Well, that's not church way of thinking. All right. So if you do capitulate, then you're just wrong and need to repent. It's just as simple as that. I don't know why people have this idea of continually. I mean, if someone tortured me and they said, you better consent to commemorate Patriarch Kirill, and after like months I did, I would never want anybody to vindicate me or praise me for doing that. I would just
I
say,
think it's I think I'm gonna drop something here. Just it's always a bad idea to be passive aggressive in the chat. I don't know if you're trying to be offensive or not, but kind of your implication is that we're not holding the Orthodox faith. You're talking about the divisions in early church history. Your name's Oriental Orthodox. Clearly, you want to preach to a Chalcedonian or a set of Chalcedonians, including a bishop, in a kind of a sing-songy way. Just say what you mean. We do not recognize non-Chalcedonians. They don't recognize the council. They don't recognize the councils of the church. They don't recognize its continued existence. And so, I mean, I think that maybe that's the kind of the situation that John MC is having, because the way he describes it, he's basically saying, don't judge the people who are for euthanasia. Like, guys, just say what you mean. Like, you're gonna get called out for it. Saba says, I heard Father Stephen Allen is not doing well. Please keep him in your prayers. Okay, so yeah. And he says, also, I like what our Vladika Andreas says about Sergei. Saving people's lives by leading their souls astray is the opposite of what a pastor's job is. His goal is to save souls, even if it leads body away. Absolutely right.
Fear not them that can destroy the body. Fear not him that can them that can destroy the body. Fear him who can throw both body and soul into hell.
Yeah.
As our Lord says.
Sunrise asks, can you explain to me where the TOCR comes from? Sorry about putting that on the screen. You're not a member, Sunrise, but we can definitely answer that. The TOCR, or the True Orthodox Church of Russia, that's not like RTOC or ROKOR related, etc. There were different Russian churches that have been trying to follow the catacombs. Some had valid orders, some didn't. Like this, some did, like the Seraphim-Gennadites. And they eventually met in council, I believe, in 1990. Where basically everyone agreed to reconsecrate each other as some sort of mega. What's the word I'm looking for? What's the term I'm looking? What's the term for when you're doing? There's hierothon. Okay, it was like a mega hierothesia that was done to ensure that everyone had valid orders. In that process, one can talk about the famous case of Vincent Chekolin, who was probably a KGB agent sent to disrupt it.
He was never part of that, though.
I thought he was part of
No,
not
at all.
All right.
In fact, he disappeared in the early 90s and went to Australia.
Yeah, but the initiative group was in like 1990.
No. It came about like in 2000 and in the late 1990s.
Okay. All right. Well, okay. So then even the Cheklin thing is not valid. The point is that's where the TOCR comes from. So their orders actually come more from the catacomnics as opposed to the ROKOR. So hopefully that answers that. Let me see here. Okay, we don't have anything. Okay. Oriental Orthodox says, thank you, Father. St. Paul at one point corrected St. Peter, but that didn't result in a split. Or in another instance, St. James stepped up to the plate and corrected misleading doctrine. Well, that's how the church always acts.
The church tried to correct Dioscorus, and he refused to be corrected,
and
had to say, look, you won't be corrected. I'm sorry, you're deposed now, and you can't, and you're excommunicated until, you're going to behave.
Same thing with Eutychius, yeah.
And unfortunately, Nestorians and Monophysites wanted to hold on to false doctrines no matter what.
So the key is you can just rejoin the Orthodox by, going to a true priest and confessing. And, there's actually modes of reception. I know there is a prayer of reception for Monophysites, isn't there?
There's various things. You have to confess, then renounce certain the Monophysite heresies and accept Chalcedon and what have you and such. So although although I should note that increasingly many Monophysites do not do triple immersion baptism, even though their books claim they do. If you start looking on YouTube at baptisms of infants done by Coptic or Ethiopian clergy, they end up being, at best, pouring water on the head 3 times, the Ethiopians, or for the Copts, they sort of just immerse the baby up to the waist in the water 3 times.
Yeah,
which is quite strange. That's not even clinic baptism. I mean, the Ethiopians seem to have some understanding of clinic baptism.
Yep.
Whereas others, the Armenians seem not even care at some point. It's just the whole thing is collapsed.
Or OTP says, or you can join the Antiochian Patriarchate and be in communion with them. LOL. Yeah, that's not a great thing. Let me see. Oriental Orthodox says the apostles were harmonious with great sacrificial team effort for the glory of Christ. I wish all the early fathers retained their holy examples, but they did. That's what the apostolic and the early Nicene fathers were for. Or OTP says Monophysites are received by baptism. Yeah, that seems to be becoming the standard.
It's because I can guarantee you, I have all the Monophysite baptism. I made a study of finding looking on, YouTube pictures, etc., websites to try to find a single Monophysite baptism that was done by triple immersion, and I found maybe the actual triple immersion, and it was few, and they tended to be adults at best.
Yeah,
it's gotten to the point where I'm starting to think that when I don't know, something strange happened in the past 150 years in those bodies. Other strange things happen. But let's see if we can finish this up real quick, rather, the article.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So we'll try to catch up where Barnold is afterwards. But let's get back to that. Give me just a moment. Okay. We are committed and we will be strong to always maintain the truth and nothing else. We're not here to be politicians. We're not here to be social commentators. We're not here to foster any worldly agenda. We are here, and I pray from the bottom of my heart that each one of you is here for only one reason: to listen to the gospel of Jesus Christ and to do it. I want to stop here because the little social commentators comment, that's all cool and all that he's saying that from church, but he too also runs a YouTube channel. And he does social commentary to imply, maybe his audience is stupid or something, but the same person who's speaking there in church does do things like being social commentators. I find this to be kind of hypocritical. He's saying one thing out of one side of his mouth and another out of the other. Anyway, let me just conclude by saying this: if you have come here for any of the wrong reasons, God bless you. Stay. If what you want is to become something different, if what you want is to be changed into something different, higher, better than this, that is the whole reason the church exists: for repentance, a change of life. But if any of us is here so that we can be reinforced in our cultural understanding, so that we can be somehow strengthened in our own politics or social norms, if that's what you want, go do that at home. Go do that by yourself and come back to us when you're ready to repent. What?
I'm just repeating the Slavic, very, I believe. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, very. This is the church, Christ Church. If you want to know what we believe, don't look at the internet. Don't read media reports. Listen to your own voice when you open your mouth during the liturgy and sing very. I believe the creed. That is what we believe. If you want to see what humanity looks like, look at the humanity of the church: humanity, groundedness, and forgiveness, and love, and mutual support and following Christ God. May this be our mission and only goal. If we have failed in proclaiming this to the world, if the world causes us to think otherwise because of our shortcomings, let us do better. And where others are misrepresenting us, just ignore them. Don't react. Don't respond. But above all, don't be swayed by this kind of nonsense.
Don't react. If people are misrepresenting the church teaching, don't say anything. Okay.
Of course, this is the whole point. This whole speech.
No wonder, and you wonder why things are like they are in world orthodoxy.
Yeah, that's double speak.
Just they can misrepresent the church teaching. Why is he reacting here, by the way?
Yeah, well, he's reacting in church. So this is this is just, this is his sermon here. So
because up to this point, I was like, there are problems here. But now it was getting to the point where I was like, well, maybe I see a little bit of what he's saying. And then it's like, no, don't react. People misrepresent us. Just ignore them. Don't
ignore
say
it all. Ignore it all.
And hope it goes away.
Good Soviet Pope.
If the humanists and all the heretics are saying all this stuff, just pretend as if they aren't saying it.
Yep.
And it will go away.
It always shows up somewhere.
They don't go away, by the way. They don't. I can tell you, the ecumenist modernists did not go away because people just
No,
said,
they don't.
just be orthodox and don't listen to that stuff and mind your own spiritual life. No. That's what kind of things heretics say. Remember the Arians, when they took over various local churches in the East, they said, "Oh, you can be orthodox and say your stuff, but we're in charge." All right, and that didn't work out. All right, so.
All right, so Barnold asked, "Do the
said
Coptics?"
something.
Huh?
Sorry, I said the fathers said things.
Yeah,
right.
they did,
and they reacted and responded.
Yep. Barnold said, "Do the Coptics believe in the Holy Trinity?" Oriental Orthodox says, "Yes, they do." Yeah, but they don't believe it in the same way that the Orthodox do. That's the main point. Big Sosa says, "If thou art a beloved slave who contracted a marriage with thine enemies, wouldst thou not be offended by him and despise him as one treacherous?" St. Julian of Nicomedia. Yeah. Yep. And then OTP says, even if they were triple immersed, they should be baptized regardless. I mean, that's one view that is held in the history of the church, but there are economic views. I think if you can prove that they were triple immersed, I don't know that it's absolutely necessary. I don't know, Vlanika, what's your thoughts on this?
Well, I mean, if his church jurisdiction, if that's their view, that's their view.
Yeah.
I mean, if someone can prove to me they were triple immersed in the name of the Trinity in the way the church does baptism, and they confess the Orthodox faith, and they can be chrismated.
Yeah.
That's how the canons dealt with it by and large.
Well, it's very difficult, and it's very difficult to, we should say, to prove.
Now that being said, I've never had to do that with anybody, because basically the only people I'm dealing with who have been like baptized by triple immersion outside the church were like some like non-canonical group or something like that. You know what I mean? That's really the only case, and they already think they're orthodox. They are professing all the councils and orthodoxy. It's just there's some problem with the jurisdiction or whatever they came from. That's like maybe you can find some World Orthodox people who are baptized by triple immersion,
but fewer and fewer of them.
Yes, but you can't. I have had those situations.
Yeah, that those can be fixed that way.
Yes.
Genevieve says, "Let us not forget the martyrs who beg for torture and death for our Lord. I pray we don't fall victim of excessive information, which doesn't apply you to our lives." Okay. Sunrise says, "When did the clergy in the West start being clean shaven? Was it very long before the schism?" That's an interesting question.
I think there are. I think you can probably find some pictures of mosaics from like the 4th or 5th century. There was mixed attitudes about it, because obviously you can find like some of the mosaics about, let's say, St. Macarius of Jerusalem holding up the cross after it's discovered, and like the deacons behind him, the 2 deacons beside him are clean shaven, but the bishop, he has a beard and such.
Yeah.
Obviously there's some people point to Saint Germanus of Constantinople not having a beard, although the problem with that is he was a eunuch. He was forcibly eunuchized when he was young, so he couldn't grow a beard. Obviously he can't be. The canons do say if somebody castrates themselves, they can't be made a clergyman. But if it's if it's not by their own choice, then that's a different matter.
Allowable.
So I would say probably there were maybe attitudes, in the East and West that allowed some of that, but over time the church simply didn't accept it.
Yep.
I'm not going to go to the point of saying that someone ceases to have valid orders if they lose their beard, but it's something you should have.
Yeah.
So.
Barnold says, "How can the Coptics defend the icons?" Valid point, because of the fact that they did not adhere to the 7th Council. I think that actually affected not just their iconography, but also how they view heterodox images.
Well, now I should point out, if I was having this discussion with someone a few days ago, that up until about the year 1200, all as a rule, not just the Orthodox Church, but the Papists, the Monophysites, and the Nestorians, their iconographic representations were still within the realm of what we consider Orthodox iconography. What you think of as Coptic iconography, I've seen some things from art books from the Egyptian desert, from like the 10th century, of Coptic churches, monasteries, and you would go in there and you look at the ceiling, the apse, and it looks just like it's Byzantine iconography. But this is historically a Coptic Monophysite church. So something like, first there was something that happened in the West, obviously the Great Schism. Thomism, which affected artistic understanding. This whole idea of grace perfecting already perfected nature.
Yep.
Thomism introduced essentially a Pelagian view of the fall, even though they claimed they didn't. They rejected St. Augustine's view, and such. Justin Popovich talks about this.
Well,
this affected their idea of artwork.
Also Islam, because Islam, they would have been pressured to remove their imagery.
Well, in the desert, they probably not so much, because a lot of the Muslims weren't necessarily going out all the way into some Coptic monastery in the desert.
Right.
That was where they could be secured. The other point to remember is that, like Nestorians, you have Nestorian texts from the 12th, 13th, 14th century that talk about not just kissing the cross, but kissing icons, venerating relics. There are some excavations or restorations of ancient Nestorian churches from the medieval period that do show iconography just like us. So, but like you said, Islam had a massive effect on them. So especially Nestorian. So they began to drop. I mean, that was probably a Christological heresy. Their heresy is Christological, right? So I'm sure Nestorianism and Monasticism gradually had other effects out. And there was, I think, a Coptic pope in the 19th century who ended up destroying thousands of icons too. There was like this explicitly iconoclastic period in like the 1840s by one of the Coptic patriarchs of the Monophysites, who became influenced by Protestant propaganda and such. So my point is that that what people call Byzantine iconography is in fact simply classical Christian Orthodox. Christian is all universal painting that churches had. All right.
Yeah.
And anything deviating from that is a deviation and such. So.
All right, let's continue. I hope that helped answer those questions. Let's continue on. Sunrise says World Orthodoxy is unfortunately blind obedience for people, which saints don't teach. That's correct. Sava, again, with a member comment. If you like your comments on the screen, you can either super chat or become a member. I like what Father Antonio says. Obedience to disobedience is not obedience. It's still disobedience. Sunrise agrees. OTB says, if that was one video, baptized. Big Sosa says, I'm not sure. I guess he's referring to the number. Like, you can't base
I don't
baptismal policy on one baptism, right? And
that was my point. It was like, I'm seeing all these things, and it's like one or two that you could say had valid form. I was like, I don't.
Right. Yeah. A one or two maybes does not a general policy make, unless you're World Orthodox. Big Sosa says Sunrise is a previous
remember, their textbooks say they do triple immersion baptism. Their ritual books say they do triple immersion baptism, but they're not doing it.
Yeah.
All right. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. You're establishing a point. Sunrise says the previous Gorge catechumen, the blind obedience thing is so true. OTP says I'm a baptize them all perspective, like Saint Firmilian and Cyprian. Yep. OTP says, I mean, if that was even on every video, even on video. Sorry, typo. Yeah, the video evidence doesn't show it. Certainly not. I came from GoArch too. I can relate somewhat. Leonidas with a member comment says new calendarists too. Well, I think that we covered that there are still new calendarists that we know are doing at least a form of baptism properly. But the point is, it's that may well be starting to fade as well. Let's see. Memento Mori says, regarding this topic about heretics separating and remaining over time, I think this is what we're currently seeing with World Orthodoxy. Yeah, it's dropping off. Sunrise says, so what is the logic with papist shaving? They want to look like pagans? No, I think they want to look young. That seems to be their main thing.
I think they're asking still, why did you have like instances like a lot of the mosaics and frescoes that survive from like Italy in the 5th and 6th century show by and large clergy with beards. As to why some of them did begin shaving, I still think there was some sort of influence from like Roman and aristocratic military culture that influenced. There's something like that happened. It's like, why did the Byzantine emperors? Some of the Byzantine emperors shave and things like that.
Yeah. Up
until like the 7th century when it sort of fell out of fashion, what have you, because a lot of them were soldiers, military commanders. I mean, who knows, but we don't do that anymore. So.
All right. Leonidas with another member chat says, people who criticize St. Matthew of Brisena for performing a single-handed consecration seem to have no problem with Galacti and Cordon doing the same thing for the Romanian old calendars. I think that in both cases they were justified, and I'm pretty sure in both cases they were pretty much corrected. So to me, it's not an issue. I don't know if it's an issue to other people. OTP says Leonidas, Antioch, and Alexandria, definitely, I think, in terms of rebaptism. Leonidas says, can members post links in the chat? No, this is a YouTube thing. That is not, it's not actually up to me. There's no way for me to change it. Only the person running a live stream is able to post links in the chat. It's just an issue of YouTube. So if you find another way to send it to me, I can put it up on the screen if you need me to. But otherwise, no, I don't see another way to do that. Okay, so we're in the third minute of the second hour. And again, I know I've been scrolling the banner on the screen, but, support the channel. We at NFTU need your help. Support us by subscribing or donating at nftu.net with various options like PayPal, Cash App, BTC, LTC, or XMR, or on Give, Send, Go. Just look in the description. And once again, just to mention what we're doing here today, this is actually a second live stream because our Sunday night live stream is pretty well established. And now, in the spirit of working harder and smarter, I am opening up a second live stream, as well as, I still have to do video clips. That will be more of a thing. I've got like 4 in the queue I need to take care of, but I'm always doing stuff. So yeah, the target, as you can see on the bottom, I should mention that that target of it was originally 725 on Sunday. It's down to 650. It's for bills. We have lots of bills here, and frankly, we end up behind. And so I've been using the credit card. I don't have a big I don't have like a big what's the word I'm looking for? A big maximum balance. So there's only so much I can do. I've maxed that out, so I have to ask for help and see what I can get and pay more stuff. John says, "Good evening, Father. Father bless. God bless you." Well, Politica, you're there.
The Lord bless.
Yeah,
so what is their conclusion, or what is your conclusion from you? I'm assuming you read that BBC article, and now reading this.
I think I thought the BBC article was not something new. Like this is the same stuff that major media has been talking about recently with young converts to world orthodoxy, mostly male, mostly looking for guidance, so on and so forth. This sounded like the same stuff. And I feel like Bishop Irenaeus' response, by contrast, he just felt like flame on them for some reason. I thought it was unnecessary.
Okay.
Sunrise asks, how do you think Gregory of Colorado can justify the calendar change as not a big deal, but that Rokor fell away as soon as they went into communion with Cyprian? Seems illogical. Yeah, I would say that it is illogical. And I think if he's saying the calendar change is not a big deal, he's kind of dismissing the whole history of the movement in Greece and in Romania. Maybe he should talk less. That's my opinion. Big Sosa says, is there any evidence where two bishops were inconsistent with each other, yet it was taught or permitted for their respective laymen to continue receiving the Eucharist across the divide? Well, that's an I mean, if what you're asking, if you're talking about like tangential communion, then...
I think so, yes. You have the case of when the Western Orthodox bishops broke communion with all the Eastern bishops after the deposition and murder of St. John Chrysostom. Because they considered them to have been killed by, when you exile somebody and they get, basically brutally treated and die of bad treatment.
Exhaustion, yeah.
Yes. So I during that period, from my understanding, they did not necessarily prohibit people, if they came from Greece to Rome, to not take communion. They just wouldn't do stuff with their clergy as such. There were some bishops in the East that they were in communion with. They were mainly the disciples of St. John Chrysostom, who refused to commune with the replacements they gave in Constantinople and in Antioch, because they remember they got rid of I think they even clandestinely consecrated a bishop of Antioch in like 4808 or something like that would agree to the deposition or something.
All right. So we got a super chat. Thank you to Black Ortho Acolyte for $10. For helping keep the lights on. And he said, is the view that St. Augustine is a saint because of his piety and not his theology due to his supposed errors a more modern view, or is that the consensus of the saints' view on him throughout history? I'm going to go with modern view. Ludika,
I think so, because you notice that, St. Augustine's, for example, if you read some of the material from Florence, I've read it in like English translation out of Russian, where the St. Mark of Ephesus and others deal with it. They certainly treat St. Augustine as a respected father for authoritative matters, even if they can say, well, I don't agree with what is said to be said by him, just like said to be said by St. Gregory of Nyssa, or what have you. So, saying someone's like this, we got to remember, ecumenical councils like the Fifth Council don't name somebody as one of the 7 or 10 approved fathers like St. Augustine because he was just a really pious person. All right. And remember, there is significant interpolations and many things attributed to St. Augustine. And I think if people are willing to go down the hill of, and I think they're right, of vindicating St. Gregory of Nyssa and saying, you know what, there we might want to look into people interpolating material into his text. Why will they not give the same benefit out to St. Augustine? I think it's very odd. It's just like HTM wrote this almost 100-page essay at the back of their translation of the Ascetic Homilies justifying why Isaac the Syrian could be part of the Assyrian Church of the East, which I don't think he was, by the way. But they were admitting, he was, and this wasn't a true schism or a true heresy. It was It was like this whole big thing. But then they'll just kick St. Augustine right out, right?
Yep.
To me, it's like they couldn't kick St. Isaac out because that would have made them look even crazier. All right, but maybe people thought they had much more greater grounds for kicking St. Augustine out. He's a saint nevertheless, even if you want to remove him, and you're gently spitting in God's face by doing that.
I agree. Ludika, I don't know if you have any other thoughts on that, Father Boniface. No? Okay. That's cool. Let's continue on. John says, Leonidas, are you a man? You there, Father?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, I was muted.
Oh, okay. It sounds like Godzilla's in the background.
Godzilla's not in my house. I don't have any Godzillas or anything else.
There's a reverb going on.
Yeah, there's quite the reverb on that.
I don't know. I don't know where it's coming from. If you're hearing it now, I don't know where it's coming from.
That's more like Mothra's electromagnetic disturbance.
I got my movie monsters wrong. Okay.
Well, you ever see the movie Godzilla versus Bambi? It's great.
Oh yeah, it's like a minute and a half long. Oh, that scared me as a kid. It scarred me, but I watched it again on YouTube as an adult, and it was pretty funny. Let's see. John says, Leonidas, are you a man? I'm gonna have to. You're really loud there. I'm gonna mute you for a second there, Father.
Father Boniface might want to drop off and try to reconnect.
Okay.
If you're listening, Father, try to drop off and reconnect. It might help your.
I'll do that.
Okay.
I'll do that.
All right. John says,
but I think Black Orthodox Alpha, I think just to touch on his question again, real quick, I think he's bringing up an important point where there's this attempt to sort of shuffle off some of the saints, and like St. Augustine, instead of simply defending them. I don't know why there is this fear of simply looking at things that Zernikoff did, where he was able to show interpolations in his work. That doesn't mean, if you mess up, if all you have to do, remember, is interpolate or fabricate a few works that you can cause problems in church history.
Yep.
All right, that's all you have to do, and I don't know why there's this lack of. For example, even the Catholic University of America, when they published their edition of the Letters of St. Augustine, they intentionally chose the Patrologia Latina edition, and when they published one of the letters to Alypius, to Maximus the physician, from St. Augustine, they included the Filioque in it, even though in the Patrologia notes it says the oldest manuscripts don't have the Filioque in that letter. All right. It's sort of it's like why, and then you look at the CCSL, I believe, critical edition, and it doesn't have it either.
Yep.
It's like, well, there's something is going on here, because if they lose somebody like, and Zernikoff was great at proving it, if they lose somebody like St. Augustine, And then even the material that people have been trying to use to promote some error turns out to have been not just fabricated, and if it is genuine, it's sort of grossly misinterpreted or taken out of context.
Yep.
Then you have major problems. Because it's gonna be the sort of overthrow. I mean, it should be, of the whole edifice of papacy, which is essentially a schism that went in search of an ideology.
Yeah,
I was having that discussion with Atomic Lead like two or three Sundays ago, when he was bringing out things like even, I think he brought it to me, and you have the talk that even their attempts to anachronistically read, purgatorial flames into some like visions before the schism or something like that, they don't even work out or fit. Even stuff from the 12th century that seems like it's more amenable after the schism, obviously, to purgatorial fire purifying people, that doesn't even fit with later Tridentine ideology of temporal punishment and things like that.
Right, which makes purgatory more like a jail rather than a pit of fire.
Yeah, because exactly, because the patristic teaching is that the souls of Christians who have not yet been completely purified of sins at death, though they are saved, and if they're not purified in the act of death and by prayers, they are remanded to the upper levels of Hades, where they are purified through the divine compassion. And suffering they endure is a result of sin. It's not the suffering itself that is creating the catharsis and such.
Yeah.
Like
okay.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just saying that I think he's bringing up I think Black Orthodox acolytes should really look into that translation of Zernikov's chapter on the interpolations in the Latin Fathers, because almost all modern scholarship has proven that to be accurate. And if you read the comments by the translator, he seemed very angry. Like he was like, what is Zernik? It was like, it doesn't matter. He's just trying to. It was like he was admitting, yeah, these are all interpolations.
But at the same time, he was pretty mad that Zernikov pointed them out.
Because I think all of them realized, hey, if this is the case,
then basically the whole Orthodox case becomes unassailable.
Exactly, it's completely unassailable. It's already unassailable, but it makes it's even more like a step shut, or whatever the phrase is, right? So.
Let's see. Leonidas 2000 with a member chat says, not all true Orthodox synods are truly Orthodox. Hakna, the SR when it was still active, and the Gregorian and Kyrikite Matthewites are all heretical, uncanonical synods. I mean, that's a big can of worms to open up, because you're talking about cases where there were separations and depositions. And I certainly don't doubt what you're saying on Hakna. The SIR thing, I think in practice, okay, I guess you're pouring some coffee there, Father. The SIR, when it was still active, some could make that argument, but certainly they seem to have at least reversed their position before they, dismantled.
Some of so-called Cyprianism to me seems like like a behind the times reading of how the state of world orthodoxy is.
Yeah, it really does.
Like, it's like they're trying to say, well, that's not, you're not dealing with reality.
Well, I forget who. I think it might have been Vladimir Moss who said it seems like they're trying to pretend it's 1930, and that really felt like that a lot of the time.
Or even 19. Yeah, exactly. It's not. You're not dealing with. You're not dealing with the 1930s, where you could go to, where the true Orthodox in Greece could write letters and say that they're asking Alexandria and Antioch to help them.
Right.
And
exactly.
That's not happening now.
Yeah.
So.
Now, as for the Gregorian, I think the Gregorians, it's hard to tell, because, frankly, both the Gregorians and the regular Matthewites under Archbishop Stephanos all hold to the God the Father icon as being, I think it may have well been, and I'm not a Matthewite, so I haven't studied the documents, but I think in the case of the Gregorians and the Kyrikites, in both cases, a case could be made that they kind of made an excuse to go into schism.
I got a New Testament Trinity icon right in front of me right now.
Yeah, and but ultimately, neither of them are, I don't know if anyone has the requisite number of bishops to go through individual trials. So, if they're not heretical.
Well, remember back in, there was, do you recall that in the 1760s or 70s, there were some various Phanariot synods that some said you can't have New Testament Trinity icons, and some said you can. And it went back and forth, and they ended up basically, maybe like they ended up saying we allow it, but they didn't excommunicate everybody who didn't like it. there was something like that happen. I can't quite remember.
Yeah.
I mean, I have them. We have them in our church. I've never, when it comes down to it, seen it as the problem. Like when I was at Metro One, the Valona, they always have them,
Yeah.
and Metro One, Caribim, or when I was at last year, his Sackos had, on the back of it, have the New Testament Trinity icon. I've never seen, why there's this crazed, hatred. I mean,
I think that unfortunately, I think what it came down to was that it
I'm not
was
saying everybody's crazy.
No, but the confusion, I believe, really stemmed in the late 1970s to early 80s, and I think eventually what's going to happen is that all sides eventually, generationally even, are going to just have to realize, okay, they're not in schism, they're not in heresy. We need to deal with each other.
Because
and I'm saying that from their side. The Stefano Synod, I'm not saying that from
so I'm speaking more in the general sense, because I don't want to get too much involved into inter-Matthew White issues and things. But
well, I think people come here for it. I mean, this is Matthew White. So,
but St. Nicodemus in the Pedalian, in one of the notes, talks about how, you can tell he has a different understanding, let's say, of how certain icons are to be used than later Orthodox peoples. I mean, for example, St. Nicodemus is very adamant that the Anastasis icon of, Christ defeating hell, that's the Holy Saturday icon. And that what the proper Pascha icon, he says, is Christ coming out of the tomb.
Yeah.
Such. And he says people who don't like these, they need to know this is the case and such. But then I think I've read other accounts from 19th century fathers, like maybe who say, the Anastasis icon really is the original resurrection icon or something like that,
Yeah.
So we use all of them. Both, to me, it seems like people are making an issue where they attack.
That's what I'm saying.
If you attack and anathematize the New Testament Trinity icon and say this is like heretical, you got a real problem going on.
Yeah.
So,
all right, let me see here. John says Gregory College. Okay, we did that one. Big Sosa, specifically prior to the 20th century. I'm pretty sure that the situation with the Greeks and Romans way back when would have been prior to the 20th century. Let me see. Victor Boutran's Path to Orthodoxy says, God bless you, Father. Went to St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York for the beautiful architecture and saw their priests in checkered floors. Freemason ecumenists. Victor Boutran's, he said they were Catholics for reference. Oh, yeah, I know. That's St. Patrick's Cathedral is a Catholic cathedral, but that's bad on you since you weren't supposed to go in there. John, Victor, heads up. Always say Father bless when greeting priests and bishops. Okay. Well, not everyone knows that, but it's good that you were trying to remind them. Sunrise says, John, Gregory literally edited out a ROCOR document where they were talking about the calendar change. LOL. I had to go to our talk site to find the unedited version. Many such cases, Sunrise. John says, oof. Victor says, thank you. John says, you're welcome. Leonida says, has there been any effort to reunite S-Talk and the GOCK? Archbishop Klinikos has been very unfair to the True Orthodox of Serbia. I mean, I'm not going to make a judgment on whether he was fair or unfair. I don't know that they're pursuing that because the S-Talk has joined into communion with the Rokana. So they're in America and in Australia. So I'm not sure what their goals are or if they're talking to any other people. John says, yes, there has been. Okay, we're past that. That's good. Godzilla, OTB says Godzilla. Hey, you're not a member. You don't get that. You don't get to put it on the screen. Oops. Okay, sorry. Leonida says, John, I'm a member of the GOC Stephanos, the mainline Matthew White Synod. John says, for international copyright restricted, we must say big terrifying lizard. I don't know about that. Sunrise says, Marble King in the background. LOL. Death to Compromise says, a fan or something. Sunrise says, raw milk delivery truck in the background. Wow. Flex. Fire. Can you spread the gospel right? Can you spread the gospel right now? Jesus has risen for all, says. I think that, there's different ways to spread the gospel, my friend. So I'm not sure we're trying to help elucidate on teachings of the church. And so to me, that's helpful in spreading the gospel. Maybe I'm not doing it the right way.
When you're talking to people, most of the people who come for this discussion already know the basics of the gospel.
Yeah.
So
And many
it's like,
exactly.
I don't have. It's like I'm not going to have to go over why you need to believe the Gospel of Matthew is accurate in order to be a Christian.
Right. And, so Sunrise, what do you think of the Filioque book by Edward C. Sensky, if anyone knows about it? Bought it while I was World Orthodox and only read a chapter. Have you read it, Vladika? Vladika vanished. Hold on. Have you read it, Father Boniface?
No, I haven't.
All right, I haven't either. So hopefully, God willing, Vladika Enoch comes back. Seraphim says, Father bless, God bless you. My GOC priest says Saint Nectarius of Aguna, he's back, had a New Testament Trinity icon, and if he was able to attain salvation from it, then it shouldn't inhibit us either. Very true. GOC Saint Michael Killia says Vladika bless, Father Joseph should debate the Matthew. So first, a blessing for Father there. Bishmina?
Oh, God bless.
Okay. And I'm not debating the Matthewites. I don't want to debate the Matthewites. I like the Matthewites. Yeah. Reader John asks, any Brendas tonight? No, not so far. Leonidas says, Leonidas's comments are coming up on the screen because he is a member. So if you'd like your comments on the screen, don't forget to join as a member or use a super chat. They help. Aha. Saint Nectarius of Egina gave Saint Matthew Persina his Epigonitum, which has the New Testament Trinity on it, icon. That's 2 counts for Saint Nectarius. Very good in the Holy Trinity, New Testament Trinity icon. So yeah, good enough. Moreover, says if we don't have one trans atheist call in per show, we're doing something wrong. No, I disagree, my friend. I don't think that's the case. Bishop Enoch is back.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Microphone problems.
Okay, no worries.
You didn't use clickbait.
Higher Deacon Pacomius, thank you so much for your support of the channel with $20. Says Christ is risen, Master bless. And that's God for bless. You. Okay, my question relates to the holy fire. When the Armenians tried to get the holy fire, it didn't light and stuck a pillar. If the Jerusalem Patriarchate are in heresy as well, how can they get it?
Well, they stole it. I mean, remember the Armenians. I think what people should remember, when the Crusaders initially took over Jerusalem, they went to Holy Saturday thinking they were going to get the holy fire, and it didn't happen. And then the Greek clergy told them, "Look, you came into here and killed thousands of people, and you didn't repent of it." And they repented, and then the holy fire was sent actually to the Crusader Patriarch. Now, after it became obvious they became hostile to Orthodoxy, and they became even worse, God stopped giving it to them. All right.
Now, I have something interesting to note on this, because I think what Higher Deacon Pacomius is getting at is what's happening right now.
The former Patriarch Irenaeus did claim he received the holy fire as well.
Yeah, but now here's the thing. Now, Theophilus has gone much further into heresy, but there's also news stories, and I did a review of Cleave to Antiquity. He's a Protestant guy. His video on the holy fire. And a whole bunch of news stories are coming out that, they're faking the ceremony. Now, what's not being faked, however, is that the holy fire is still coming down.
Yes.
But it is possible that the light that is being used inside the church, that is actually being faked. So the holy fire is happening, and it's being given to the people, but what he's spreading out as the holy fire might not be.
Now, remember also, when you read Monk Bernard from the 850s, I think 860s, his chronicle, how he went to Jerusalem, he talked to the patriarch of the time, who I can't remember the name of the patriarch of Jerusalem in the 850s, that he talks about that when Holy Saturday, the fire came and all the lamps in the church just began to light. All right. So at his time, it wasn't clear to anybody that the fire was being sent directly to the patriarch himself, Father.
Yeah.
It was like the lamps and fires the lights were being lit, sort of spontaneous, by the descent of the power of the Holy Ghost. So,
well, our new target is 620. We're down to 620. Thank you so much for that super chat, Higher Deacon Pacomius. Seraphim says, "Brethren, more of a brethren. I did not realize you're true Orthodox." He's not. Big Sosa, when I was World Orthodox Catechumen, I heard that heaven and hell will be the same place where we'll have direct experience of God. but I've recently learned this is false by John Romanides. Thoughts? There have been fathers who have kind of talked about the fire of God being a dichotomy in that way. So it's not really his idea, but heaven and hell generally are described as distinct places. I don't know if you want to add to that, Woodigo.
I think there's no contradiction between them being different states and different places. How we think of geography and place and location is going to be very much similar but different in the world to come.
Okay.
Both now and in the new heaven and new earth. I mean, it's very clear if you read in the book of Revelation in the patristic interpretation that the righteous aren't going to be in the city, the New Jerusalem. I mean, the righteous will be in New Jerusalem, but the wicked will be outside the city gates.
Right.
All right. But a lot of the fathers emphasize that they aren't going to be like brick. It's not going to be it's not going to be, not to take this in the sense of too crassly materialistic a sense.
Yeah.
So there's a balance.
All right. So let's see here. More of a brother says, Sarah from Webster says, I was wondering this for a while to Father Pachomius. Reconquista says, are there true Orthodox in Palestine? Sarah from Webster says, yes, under Agafongo, that's true. There are missions in the Holy Land. I'm not sure how large they are, but they do exist. Leonidas asks St. Michael Kelly, why? If you'd like to put your comment on the screen, don't forget either a super chat or become a member. Let's see here. What is Master Bless supposed to mean? Bishop Enoch is a bishop of the church. When we say to priests, we use greetings like Father Bless. It's the same concept. You say Master Bless to a bishop.
Like Greek, it's eulogite despota.
Yeah,
right.
And so that's kind of I know that's usually Matthew is Protestant, and he finds often Orthodox customs to be very upsetting, and this might be one that he may find upsetting, and it goes back to the whole call no one father, but of course St. Paul corrects that. So anyway, I hope that helps. Sarah from Webster, it's a bit dangerous for us to deny the holy fire being legitimate, is it not? I don't think that the holy fire is illegitimate. I think that the real holy fire is coming down. We see that every year. It lights lamps on its own. It's a mystical fire. But is that the same fire that's coming out of the tomb that Patrick Theophilus? I think it's a legitimate question. I don't deny the holy fire. I believe in it, but I question whether the fire coming out of the patriarch's lamp is in fact the same holy fire. Sarah from Webster says it's a formality, asking a blessing from a bishop. Reconquista comes in with $10. Thank you for helping keep the lights on. Father, my ancestry keeps updating my results and has now given me 3% Jewish, so there's no way I'm anti-Semitic. Always got to be a Jew in there somewhere, isn't there? All right, so I'm going to update that. All right, let's do that. Hold on. Let me see.
In the medieval period, there were two places that had the largest Jewish populations, and there was Spain and in the Near East area of the Middle East. And those were also the areas like where St. John Chrysostom was and St. Isidore was, where you oftentimes found the most hostile reaction when there were too many of them saying too many bad things against the church.
Yep.
Like people ask, why don't you have a lot of sermons from Anglo-Saxon writers about the Jews, pro-former stuff? Because there were no Jews
there.
They
kicked them out.
I think there was an attempt in the 80s for some of them to come in, and King Alfred just made them leave. But in Spain, because it was connected, it had a large Jewish population. They always had a lot of problems, and such. But if you truly repented and you truly got and you really got baptized, and you weren't going to cause problems, they were fine with it. But remember, the Seventh Ecumenical Council, one of its canons, state that, we accept repentant Jews to become Christians, but they have to be monitored because we don't want them causing problems.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if someone says, well, I have Jewish ancestry, but they really believe in Orthodox and they got baptized, and you're not causing any issues, well, we're not talking about you.
Yep.
So remember that.
Let me see here. Let's continue reading. We've got Reconquista, don't become a doctor from Sunrise. Sarah from Webster says, my wife is 2% Ashkenazi, so our child will be 1%. I can't be anti-Semitic either. At least Matthew's a Protestant on a TO stream. May the Lord guide him home. Yeah, we like having him here. He's fine. Memento says, hello, Sarah from Webster. Reconquista says, my father's family was from northern Spain. Completely understand that. Father was wondering, Seraphim says, I was wondering if you had an opinion on the GOC split between Makarios and Kalinikos. I was in OCZ's Discord, and a GOCM was essentially telling me my synod is devoid of grace. Yeah, my personal view, and this is probably going to piss off some people on the Macarian synod, but my personal view is that they had it right when they didn't elect an archbishop. They had a lot, I felt like they had like a lot of really powerful and graceful things to say. And it seems like the second that they decided to elect a counter archbishop, things just got much darker. Our own Metropolitan Angelos of blessed memory, when he first left the Cyprianites because he didn't see himself as in opposition to the new calendarists, but to the main true Orthodox Church. He immediately joined the Macarians, and they reordained him to his dismay, because he came from the Cyprianites. And so when that happened, effectively what he did was when he had more bishops made and Metropolitan Evlogius helped him, the main idea was to create something akin to the original idea of the Macarian Synod when it was the Lamian Synod. And so my view is that had they stayed in that original form and not necessarily like as a vanguard group, which is what our Greeks do, against the main true Orthodox Archbishop of Greece, that would have been a healthier thing. So I think that they're trying to carry on a tradition, and I generally, no offense to Matthewites here, but I generally call them discount Matthewites because they want to act like Matthewites without the actual struggle.
You said great value is what you told me.
Yeah, great value. That's a Walmart brand.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not familiar with all of it. Oh, anyway.
Generic brand Matthew. I mean, I'm not sure what to. Okay, there's going to be some angry Macarians at me now.
Well, here's the thing: if you're attacking somebody else and saying they don't have grace, you can't get upset about people when they defend themselves.
Or exactly. Or they say it about you.
Offhand joke about something. It's toughen up. You can't take the heat. Get out of the kitchen. We've all had to endure name calling, insults.
Yeah, exactly.
Decades or years.
Exactly. So Memento says, "Truly is risen." Let me say here. Hold on. And then Memento Mori says, Christ is risen. Okay. And Irodeacon Pacomius, thank you so much again for helping contribute and helping pay the bills, because we definitely could use some help with that. And he says, so then it would be fair to say the fire comes for the benefit of the faithful, regardless of the bishop praying for it, like all miracles. It's not magic. It's an action of the Holy Spirit. Bingo.
Yeah, because obviously, the Crusader patriarch, so-called patriarch, wasn't the real patriarch.
Yeah.
All right, and he was a adherent of Urban II, they were heretics.
Mm-hmm.
But under a certain condition, God did allow the holy fire to descend upon the Edicule or the help. I don't think they had the Edicule at that point. I think it was just there was a different Holy Sepulchre building. I think at the time, the Crusaders later built another structure over it or something like that. So. There's actually a book. If Father Pacomius is interested, there's a book he could find on Amazon that it's like the history of the Holy Fire in Jerusalem, and it contains like dozens or even like 100 sources. It's very, very well done, and it talks a lot about this. And he might benefit from reading if you can find a copy from reading it. So.
Glory to God. All right. Well, very true. Okay, and thank you for that, Father Pacomius. We're now down to $600. So that is great. Let's, I'm going to continue on. Truly is risen. Geox say Michael Killia says to Leonidas, because many Florinites don't see Matthewites as GOC. But I do, so I'm not having that debate. Matthew Jackson says, St. B said the Jews are swallowed up by the waters that renew faithful Christians. Okay. Let me see. Sunrise, Old Calendar Zealot, post Gregory Laurier videos. Yeah, Old Calendar Zealot. Oh, that's what he meant by OCZ. Oh, yeah. Seraphim, yeah, I'd get out of that Discord. Just get out of there. Them people's crazy. Let me see here. Feels like a Discord cult. It is a Discord cult. He says if you believe, Seraphim says, he said things if you believe in atoms, you're a scientard, as he put it. And he believes the universe revolves around the earth and is a flat earther. These are some topics that, they're disputed and discussed, but are they in the fathers? Not really. More of a brethren says, get a mandolin, goober. You cannot hand slice potatoes thin and consistent enough to make gratin. Okay. Higher Deacon Pacomia says there's several true Orthodox and resistance within World Orthodox that believe that. It's embarrassing, frankly. Leonidas says, and he says, St. Michael Killia, that's unfortunate. Did anyone else realize OCZ spells old calendar wrong in his YouTube name? Lord have mercy, no. Sunrise says, didn't the GOCM go into communion with Name Worshipers for like 5 years? It was, I think, closer to 3 years, and they were in communion. It's bad optics for true Orthodox, Seraphim says. Higher Deacon Paconius agrees. Seraphim agrees. Higher Deacon Pacomia says to Lydica Enoch, I would be interested in that. Lydica, absolutely. John MC says that book is by Harris Skarlakidis. And Seraphim says, I left the Discord a while ago, Father. They're really in a cult there. Yeah, they really are. It's a personality cult based on the leaders of the thing. Leonidas says, yeah, they're heretics by association. John says, Scientard. That made me chuckle. Sunrise says, why can't we just believe in science, as the atheists say? LOL. More of a red said, I deleted that. Oh, okay, sorry. I guess it just stayed in the StreamYard feed. Sorry about that. Seraphim says he has a TikTok saying the stars move around. It's not the Earth rotating. LOL. Moreover says that wasn't meant for you all. LOL. Seraphim says there's limits, but denying science entirely is zeal not according to knowledge. Yeah, I mean, as long as you're using the basic principles of learning and application, absolutely. If you start going with perverse principles or pagan principles underneath, yeah. Seraphim says you can believe in young Earth creation without being a flat Earth regime. I think the overwhelming majority of creationists on Earth do not believe in a flat Earth. But I'm not going to attack anyone who does. I understand there are people who are really into that. But anyway. Okay, so let's take a look here. Let's see here. Let's see what else we've got going on. Let me see here. Okay, nothing there. All right, so and we're looking here to see if there are any new topics, etc.
What time is it, Father?
It is currently 10:09, so I understand, Lydica, if you have to go.
I'll stay a little bit longer. It's just I didn't have
all right. Okay. Yeah. Let's see. Sunrise is the moon made of cheese. Okay, then. John, gotta love a Laurier fanboy who lives in New Zealand. Gotta fake it till you make it. Okay, well, I guess John says the moon is made of Cheetos. Okay, I think everyone's getting tired. Maybe we'll probably be ending the stream soon. But in any case,
it's a raw milk truck, a cow on a flatbed.
What? That's pretty funny. Okay. Leonidas says, hold on. What's up with Archbishop Jacob Yanakis of Athens? He's supposedly descended from Archbishop Maxentius, which I thought died out after his death. How many archbishops of Athens are there? Okay, that to make clear, we have to distinguish between archbishops of Athens who are reigning and archbishops of Athens who are claiming. I do not think if somebody in Athens has a church that's Bishop Enoch has dropped off, he'll probably be back. I don't think if someone has a church the size of a single family home, has no followers, and has somehow gotten some guy related to some synod, to a previous synod like 20 years later, even though he had no proper election, etc., and then claims to be the Archbishop of Athens. I mean, he can claim it, but nobody believes him. So, if we count how many of them are claiming versus how many of them are reigning, there's quite a few claimants, but most of them are not serious. And I would not be surprised if this is also not serious. Archbishop Maxentius' synod, when it first fell apart, a lot of that was due to bishops on the synod, like the Hockna bishops, who wanted to kind of cause it to fall apart. Callinicos of Lamia ended up fleeing because of their slanders, and he ended up going to the Chrysostomus synod, or now the Callinicos synod. I've heard about Maxentius II, who was he's like a nephew of Archbishop Maxentius, but He started picking up parishes, new calendar parishes in Australia, and keeping them as new calendars. So he was just banking on the name and wasn't taken seriously in Greece. So I don't know who Jacob Yanakis is, and frankly, what
I'm saying, sometimes it's better if, I mean, you can sort of make an argument that there's, you can have a legitimate synod, in these different situations because everything is confused. But it's quite another thing to try to make yourself the exclusive, franchise, if I use another word. And it really does cause all kinds of problems because people can say, well, we don't want to recognize the state New Calendar Church, and that's fine. All right. But you can kind of make a situation worse because as soon as you claim to be Archbishop of Athens, you're the legitimate Archbishop of Athens, it calls questions. Eventually you're going to feel impelled to start saying the other guys, they're schismatics.
Yeah.
And then leads to all kinds of problems. That's, I mean, this is all before. I always recommend people study the Arian heresy and schism in the aftermaths of the 4th century, because almost all these questions, even if they're not the exact details, they're rough and they're strong analogs to all these situations. The only difference is that there is no emperor, and there is nothing like a second ecumenical council, which served as a unifying force to bring everything together. I mean, there are a few other differences, but this is sort of what happens when chaos unfolds of the lack of Orthodox royal authority.
Yeah. So. All right. So let me see here. Sarah from Webster says 4, if I recall correctly. Atomic League, just as I find it. I'm glad you made it. Sarah, but where's Sarah instead of a contest? Make it make sense. Yeah, it's so nonsense. Moreover, brethren, not a flat earther, but the moon landing is silly. I know a lot of people who legitimately don't believe in the moon landing. I'm off the. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Maybe have you ever heard the argument that they had a real moon landing, but that what?
But that what? Lodica? Hello? Oh no. Hopefully he'll be back. I think I know what he's going to talk about. He may be referring to is that you breaking things, or what are you doing there, fella?
Oh, I'm sorry. I forget my mic's on.
That's okay. Yeah, well, I think he'll probably come back, God willing. But I think if he doesn't, I think what he's talking about is that they had a real moon landing, but basically that probably the technology was damaged or destroyed. Hold on, there. Hello, Benedict, you there?
Benedict, I'm having my the USB port. I mean, the USB plug. It's coming apart, so I'm having to rework it in between. I got to get a new headset of my headphones. But I was only saying that there's an idea that what they showed as the moon landing was actually filmed, and they did it because the real moon landing, they didn't want to show the technology or something like that.
Right. I've heard that theory, that hypothesis before, but I don't know.
I don't know.
Still don't know. Let's see here. Okay. Better Atomic Legion is better late than never, I guess. Sunrise says we need a Walmart on the moon. You need it on Mars first. It has a real atmosphere. Higher Deacon Pacomia says that sounds like Pope Michael. He was fun. Yeah, pretty much. John says, well, old calendars up. Become the Laurier Archbishop of New Zealand. No one will care. Atomic League says Wawa Sheets rivalry in space.
Say that again.
Wawa Sheets rivalry in space. Wawa and Sheets being competing. Yeah,
we have a Sheets down the road.
Oh, and, good.
And about 3 years ago, on a Monday, around this time on Paschaltide, I went. This is my own crazy story. Since we have time, I went and I got they have a pizza there, like a pizza place, like a Sheets pizza.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, this is great. And so I brought it back, and Vladika ate some, and I ate some, and such. And then after Vespers and Compline, I go to bed. I wake up like 5 hours later, 2:00 in the morning, with the absolute worst migraine headache I have had since I was like 20.
Wow.
And that's saying something with how my history of those. And I was like, oh, I don't know. It's just out of nowhere, blood pressure. And I just went and made it to the bathroom and, vomited everything up from that pizza. And
too much sodium?
I made sure I drank like half a gallon of water.
Wow.
And I don't know what was wrong with those. Like, I was having a heart attack. Almost like, did someone poison me? I couldn't figure it out. And so it was so bad that I was like, something is seriously wrong. And I had to ask Vladika. I didn't want to, but I had to ask him to call the ambulance. And
Wow.
then, like, the police came, because the police always have to show up at this point when they send an ambulance to places in these, like most places now. And then the ambulance didn't want to drive in the road, so I had to get in the car, and because Vladika couldn't drive at the time, and I had to drive myself out. It was, anyway, this whole situation. And then they gave me they had to give me these anti-migraine medicines at the hospital, and then it sort of worked out. But I've been taking ibuprofen since then. I stopped taking ibuprofen when I was a teenager, but it's been controlling things. So,
Reader John's here. Welcome, Reader John.
Vladika, bless.
The Lord bless. Christ is risen.
Truly is risen.
Okay,
So that's my sheet story. Anyway,
I didn't think we were getting a sheet story tonight, but in any case, let's continue on.
We have a lot of quick checks around here too.
I think it's really sheets versus quick checks. Do you have Wawas there or no?
Yeah, either that's a Sheets or it's a Wawa. You know what? No, that may be that's a Wawa down there.
I thought it was a Wawa because
that's
I don't think you guys have a Sheets yet.
Sheets, I've seen Sheets. They're the ones like the red awnings or something like that. Mm-hmm. I see those a lot when we drive places because there's like a lot of truckers stop at those places or scenes or something. So yeah.
All right, let's see here. Seraphim says John old calendar zealot got his name right. Get his name right. Yeah, it is. Seraphim's like spelling is for scientards. John, oh no, it's over. I'm never recovering from this. Someone says, John, stop being uncharitable. Atomic Lead says more nuance. Seraphim says something fronema. So if I say fronema enough times, I can download the mind of the Father. Something royal path, something metropolitan neophytos.
Oh no.
John says I'm not good enough to be Pope Lofton of Louisiana. Atomic Lead says something spinal fluid.
You.
John says something fighting from within, something Mount Athos restaurant. Howard Deacon McCombie says the feds got him. What Mount Athos? I see. Something fighting from within, something Mount Athos restaurant.
Oh, I see. Okay, so they're making fun of the whole fighting from within and talking about. Now tell me here, because I don't follow the news as much as I do anymore, even less. What's the whole situation? Oh, if my headphones go out, please forgive me. Watch the whole.
He needs a wired headset.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he had a wired headset, but the wire is having problems.
Oh, I thought he said he had Bluetooth. Okay.
Yeah, no. Oh, maybe I heard one. Hopefully he comes back okay. And he's back. One moment. Okay, we're back.
Sorry, I just gotta be careful if I move too much in my chair and disturb the USB port. What's the whole situation?
Oh no. He's gone again.
Come on back, Vladika. You could do it.
Oh, we gotta finish the question. Come on, Vladika.
All right, now we're all waiting.
And now I'm waiting in anticipation. Knowing my luck, a Brenda will drop on.
Yeah, well, we'll see. We're hoping. Come on, Vladika. We're rooting for you. People want to hear the rest of the story.
So you don't hear my Godzilla in the background?
Oh no, I don't hear Godzilla in the background.
I put him outside.
I thought that was your stomach, Father.
It was Godzilla. He's in the doghouse in the backyard. I got a 20-story doghouse.
Oh wow.
Higher Deacon Pacomia says the Feds got him. Sunrise says the CIA. John says Mossad. Atomic Lead said Higher Deacon James's people got Vladika.
Oh, no.
Black Ortho Acolyte says shut it down moment. They cut to compromise that they cut on Z during a live today too. LOL.
Oh, no.
Reckham says, Father, do you think they killed Osama? I have no idea. We're dealing with our own problems here.
Y'all used the J word too much today.
So it was overboard. Sunrise said the government would never lie. Seraphim says, Jay, the TO have a single parish in Florida. Dyer, yeah. John says, Big Brother loves you. Jay Dyer knows. He knows too much.
Yeah.
Jack Conquista said, Father, I don't believe in space because I know Katy Perry didn't go to space. I mean, she did in the Kanye video.
Yuck.
But anyway, all right. Sonara says 7-Eleven pizza on top. John says 7-Eleven is the new biological 9/11. I don't know what that means. Seraphim says JD is why I inquired further into true orthodoxy when I was a World Orthodox catechumen. John MC says acute food poisoning. Reconquista says, man, I'm eating a pizza at the moment. Yeah, but was it a Wawa pizza? I don't know. Atomic Lead says, I apologize for prompting this narrative. Seraphim Webster says, I called into his Twitter space and asked him about TL, and he said they worship in their basement, which made me think, wait a second, this isn't true, though. John says, I worship in my basement. Well, we all can't be you, John, can we? Leonidas says, Chrysostom of Florida was an enemy of true orthodoxy. He collaborated with Spiridon Vlachos in order to seize the monastery of Kuvara and Karatea. Father Stephen Fraser wrote about it in his book. I disagree. I think St. Chrysostom of Florina was honestly, he was truly being misled, and he was too trusting of the new calendar. I think Matthew's position on this, that the reality of what was happening is that they were being persecuted, is also correct. But I don't feel the need to demonize St. Chrysostom of Florina or St. Matthew. I think that they both, you can see how there was a real misunderstanding that could happen. And that's the position I have.
I think if you look at the history dispassionately, you can come to Father's conclusion.
Yeah. Thank you. That the compromise says, say Phronima prayer 10,000 times a day. Oh, I'm still waiting for Bishop Enoch. I'm sad that he's not here so far. Moreover, rather than the snow Hebrews that live in, and did you say the snow Hebrews that live in Antarctica controlled what we are allowed to know about space? What is a snow Hebrew?
Is that like the inverse of a black Israelite?
I have no idea. EOC Calcio says the true, genuine, actual, for real, this time legit Orthodox Church to me, and to be honest, he has a point. Try to commemorate the EP. Yeah, Calcio is point. He's just a pointless commie. Vladika is back in a whole different format. Welcome back, Vladika.
Okay, so I think I fixed it. So
awesome.
Much better.
Now we can hear the story.
Oh, what was the story? The Wawa story, or
no, he was asking. He was asking him about the situation.
There is some. So I've been trying to find some information because I saw it somewhere about the new calendar Cypriot bishop who has been. I can't tell if it's been deposed or just removed from his see because he said that he didn't accept this. He told this woman that she had to be baptized if they wanted to do this marriage in his diocese.
Oh yeah,
and she didn't want to, and they didn't want to accept it. And they complained to the FANR, and there's supposedly now I went to the Union of Orthodox Journalists website, which has some interesting stuff, but it has more interesting articles if you start going to the Greek version or the Bulgarian version of it. They have things that aren't. Yeah, they got stuff that's not English, and if you use Google Translate, it's gotten pretty good about Greek and Bulgarian. So there was one speech of some sort from the new calendar head of the Cypriots, who said that this was he. What is the name? What is the name of this guy who they deposed? I can't remember his name.
I don't remember it either.
See, this is how bad my memories. But
but nobody remembered it. It's like Kypros guy. I don't know.
So this new calendar Cypriot bishop was saying that he is a walled off one, and he's been doing ordinations for the walled off ones. Now that's interesting because then there was an article by Father Anastasios Gatsopoulos that was posted on this site defending him. So
really,
yes, and so I suspect I have a sneaking suspicion that you're going to start seeing that they had to find somebody to do ordinations for sort of the non-commemorators fighting from within group, and they finally maybe latched onto him to do it. And so he's being punished also for that because the one thing they don't want to do is to go to true orthodoxy. So they got to find something, because
they let him keep his office.
Well,
if John Reader John may know more about it if he's read more about it, but I've had difficulty.
I've seen the article. I'm just trying to remember where it was, if it was Ortho Christian or one of those.
So anyway, I found it interesting if you look at the UOJ site. You got a lot of different curated articles for different audiences. And they had one article. Now,
That's really interesting.
I have to admit, when I originally read the Orthodox Traditions publication article about the Bulgarians, I was like, well, Bulgarians are state's going to persecute people, whatever. Okay, I'm not endorsing it, but then when you read the Bulgarian version of the Union Orthodox journalists talking about the Bulgarian Patriarchate, okay, they say stuff like, you cannot allow the Bulgarian Old Calendar Church to register because that'll confuse people that they're a legitimate church and they can have property. And that'll be a danger to us.
Wow.
So they need to have their stuff taken from them. And also, you can join us and still use the old calendar, they said. There's no other issue.
Oh,
and I was like, and the only thing the Union of Orthodox Journals Bulgarian site could say is that apparently, and there may be truth to it, I don't know, that the Bulgarian Orthodox do have retained a lawyer who does work for some sort of foundation that does receive money from George Soros. And so they're saying is that, you see, there's a Soros-funded people involved in this. I don't know the truth of that. I don't know if they just hired this lady. I don't know.
Well, I will say that sometimes
it could very well be that some of these international organizations do maybe want to use some groups to fight another group.
They do that. Yeah.
That doesn't mean they like true orthodoxy, by the way.
No, it doesn't. And they'll turn on them just as quick.
Exactly. So, because if we took over Bulgaria, they would suddenly be we would
be the bad guys at that point.
So,
all right. John says, I'm turning 80. The wait is too long. Well, the wait was over. Gregory Stanton says, why did Metropolitan Filaret canonize Alexei Trupp and Anna Demidova? Wouldn't that be considered ecumenism? Sorry for the dumb question, just coming from an earnest inquirer.
Are these
Gregory, believe it or not,
are these the three Lutherans who were accidentally named?
They were Roman Catholic servants of the Tsar.
We
get this question a lot, actually, and it's pretty common. The simple reality is that servants, from what I remember, were given an opportunity to escape by the communists. So basically, they decided to stay with the Tsar, and so they were martyred with him.
There's a simpler explanation also.
Sure.
They didn't know that they were. You're actually, some of them are Roman Catholic, some are Lutheran. They didn't know that they weren't Orthodox. I've actually read about this. They actually assumed the whole household had Orthodox servants.
Yeah.
So if you have a list of like literally tens of thousands of people, and they assumed these are servants. They died with the Tsar's family. Maybe they did repent before they. Who knows? Exactly,
I tend to think that they did, because I believe that was an attempt by the Moscow Patriarchate to discredit the canonization of the new martyrs in 1981.
Okay.
And I believe God has a special place for them. That's a personal belief.
All right. I'll accept that. I'm just saying I'm not saying it's not impossible that out of a list of 20,000 names,
right,
somebody could have gotten through by accident, and it's just a mistake. That is
that was the excuse that Moscow used in 2000 to say that the list of the new martyrs of the Russian Church in 1981 is up for revision.
That's quite different than taking off St. Joseph of Petrograd.
Well, but it's the same motivation.
Oh, I understand, but it's a stretch of it. I understand your point.
Reconquista says, Father, this is a real Pizzagate situation. Ort Chow says, maybe you know about this. I was reading about Meletius and the Turkish Orthodox Church again. What's the deal with that and Papa Eftim? Just a nationalist cult or what? They were a nationalist cult with legitimate grievances. But in fact,
they were ordained in the 1920s by some ecumenical patriarchate bishops they got to help them out.
Well, yeah, but I thought the Papa Eftim himself was married.
The original was the original one married?
His son took over.
Well, the reason I say that is didn't he take monastic vows and he was already had children?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe that's possible.
Some of that I thought was actually the case.
Yeah, that might have been the case with the original, but with the people after, they just ignored it.
Because I do know the Fanart did have this issue where they wanted to preserve the Greek nature of the ecumenical patriarchate.
Yeah,
and the fact that you have literally there was something like 60,000 Orthodox, actual ethnic Turkish people. There's a name for them actually. There's the Gaguz or something like that. It was actually they're not the Ottoman Turks. They're actually a Turkish tribe that converted to Orthodox back in the 10th century or something.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
So there have been those types of people, and so like the Bulgar. People forget the Bulgarians. The original Bulgarians were Turkic, and they converted to Orthodoxy in the 9th century, but they had already conquered a Slavic area and they were Slavicized so that it's only the name now at this point that we associate. Like the Volga River Bulgars in Russia are definitely a Turkic people still. So
John asked if Father Boniface has Godzilla in his backyard. Does he also have King Kong? I think King Kong's in Jacksonville, but Father Boniface can answer that.
You think he's in Jacksonville?
Yeah. King
I
Kong.
don't know. He ran away, so I don't know where he went. Maybe he is in Jacksonville.
Seraphim Webster says Gregory Stanton, if those individuals lived under Tsar's rule under St. Nicholas II, why would canonizing them be ecumenism? Well, it's an attempt. It's a gotcha. It's a gotcha. I don't think he meant it like in a gotcha way, but it was originally conceived as a gotcha question. Leonidas 2000 said, have you read Father Stephen Fraser's book? Oh, yes, many times. It was based on the writings of Stavros Markou, who put that together. So, and he's an interesting case on his own. When he became a Kierkegaard, and then he ended up opening the Matthewite library archives, and he found that even in the 30s, the Matthewites still technically recognized all the other Orthodox churches, and that the theory that they completely abandoned all of world Orthodoxy back then was created by Father, then later Bishop Kyriakos Kantogiannis. Higher Deacon Pacomia says, holy people can be misled or confused. They aren't perfect or omnipotent. That's restricted to gods. To God, they are God's friends, not God himself. Nick says, your blessing, Father, the fisherman catching the chalk cracked me up. Thank you. God bless you. Oh, wait, Ladika, sorry.
God bless.
How many churches does Denver of Colorado have? Is it only one? They have consistently managed to have 3 to 4 small parishes in the U.S. for probably the past 25 years. They lose one, they gain one, but it never really goes past 3 or 4. Occasionally, they did manage to take in a large African group a long time back. I know that Bishop Andre and other bishops have taken some of those parishes and churches back. But that's up in the air. And they have the pleasure of not dealing with Gregory on a day-to-day basis in Africa. So, Metropolitan Metropolitan Tikos is the name of the
Tychos, yes.
Tychos of Papos.
Yes.
Memento says that calls you guys a strange character. He was acting indignity towards Father Methodius, and how true Orthodox aren't spiritual enough. Yet this dude is consistently posting heinous comments. Yeah, it is. And Father Methodius is still on YouTube, but I have a feeling that it was really nasty comments and stuff like that. They try to drive people off Twitter.
So what was happening?
Well, Calciu is this. He's one of these. He's a new calendarist sympathizer who basically harasses true Orthodox people on social media. He occasionally shows up making a comment on this channel and gets clowned. John says he's a weirdo.
I wish he would come up here.
Yeah, he's not dumb enough to do that. Seraphim says, doesn't he also worship Calciu, who was a known fascist? I have no idea what he truly believes about that. John says, Lydica Enoch, do you know the name of the Greek non-commemorator group that Father Theodore Zizis is with? I believe these are the same people, right, Lydica?
Either that UAJ article was by it may have been by Father Anastasius Gatsopoulos or it was by Father Zizis.
Yeah,
I'd have to go back and look at it. So if you go to the UAJ website and you type on and you hit the Greek button, and if you can't read the Greek, I would suggest copying the link and then putting it in Google Translate for the website, and they will give a good translation. But you have to be careful, but you can more than tell what's actually being said. Yeah. So I don't know if I don't think they have a name. I think it's just they're just the
I thought it was just the
walled off ones. Well, they're called the walled off ones by the new calendar Cypriot bishop, metropolitan archbishop. So I don't know if I'm sorry, Reader John, you were saying something?
I thought Father Theodore, it was just his parish that was a part.
It seemed the implication from that speech was that there's something else going on, and they're trying to hide it. But people maybe in Greece do know about it. It was like dancing around everything, but you could read between the lines a bit.
Gotcha.
So
yeah,
because remember this if they I'm sorry, Father Joseph. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm going through.
Okay,
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
All I was going to bring up is, there have to be a little careful with this because it's getting to the point where if they have like 20, 30, because like I think in the Russia itself, there are maybe like 40 or 50. For some reason, I think around that number, maybe more, non-commemorator Moscow Patriarchate priest associations or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been very careful about how they've dealt with them, because they're afraid of like completely losing him. They might they might do a deposition to make an example of one guy if it's something particularly egregious. But I suspect there's a similar situation going on in the Greek New Calendar world that's sort of being, suppressed media-wise or such. So anyway.
Yeah. Now, Leonidas, again, if you want your comments up on the screen, he's quoting something that says the hierarchy for the sake of the authority and prestige of the church is just for one metropolitan to pretend to be an old calendarist and to become the head of the old calendars while controlling the struggle from the canonical boundaries of the state church. Only now have these ideologies emerged which direct the sacred struggle and control it within the frames of the sacred canons. And then it says, on December 11th, 1950, Metropolitan Chrysostom of Florina made the previous statement. So Metropolitan Chrysostom of Florina was a collaborator of the New Calendar State Church.
You would have to show the document. I'd actually want to see everything.
There's also one other problem. Metropolitan Chrysostomus was not the head of the Old Calendar Church. That was Germanos of Demetrius, and so it may have been an actual accusation against Germanos. But I sense it might be out of context. But yeah, so because why would Metropolitan Chrysostom say that about himself?
Yes, I always want to see these full articles. I don't like it when people just give snippet quotes.
Yeah,
and there's always ellipsis before and there's ellipsis after. I want to see give us a scan of the page in Greek at least, and we'll find people to translate it.
Leonidas, if you have access to the Greek newspapers, we would like to see the whole thing.
Like the Agony in the Garden. I have yet to be able to even get a PDF file of that.
It's
Maybe
impossible
somebody sent
to
it
get.
to me, but I couldn't get it.
But what surprised me was the people that tried to purchase it. I know I tried to. Said that its length was less than 300 pages. If that's so, it may not be as definitive as we think.
Well, I would like to. Who has like is for example.
None of the sources they describe it, but it was not for sale.
Like if people want to do translations, there's supposedly these like 5 volumes of the collected works of Chrysostomus of Florina that have been published. Maybe somebody should publish that. Maybe they should publish.
Yeah, the point is,
a lot of these newspaper articles back and forth, not just like one small book between Matthew and Chrysostomus going back and forth, but
right,
really
like the one that the Cyprianites did. Yeah.
But
what I would like to see personally,
either that or I would afraid there's something in it that's going to affect all parties, like the Stavros Mokou revelation.
Yeah, I have a feeling that it's not going to affect all parties because of the research that they probably put into it before they glorified him, and they have a lot of stuff. But what I would like to see is all the contemporary Greek media thing on the Mother Miriam trial. I'm convinced that she was not only innocent, but probably, killed through her prison case. I have just based on what we even know in English, it looks really flimsy. And I have a feeling looking at the Greek will make it even worse.
Yeah.
Let me see here. Reconquista says, Father, do you know about the Khazaria?
Yeah.
Oh goodness.
Yeah.
They were a Turkic tribe that the aristocracy converted to rabbinism.
Yeah.
And then they were destroyed by the Saint Vladimir and the Russians.
We need to get the number of Jew references in on every episode.
Well, it's not true that most of them converted to Judaism. There is not real evidence. It was really the upper aristocratic class.
Yep.
The lower, like remember the Cossacks. People forget this. If you look at Cossack documents, who are definitely a strong Orthodox group, the Cossacks claimed that they are in fact derived from the Khazarians who did not convert to Judaism but were actually Orthodox. Yeah. Because those Cossacks originally claimed they came off the steppes and they were steppe people, and that a lot of the Slavs were like the horse lords of some, in that sense. So anyway.
Let's see. Higher Deacon Pachomius. Oh, that's more than we have in the Avlona Synod. Here we got to step our missionary game up. I'm not sure what you're talking about or
parishes.
Parishes from who? Who are we talking about?
You comparing it to Gregory.
Oh no, okay. Well, I think that you're like one behind them, and the Avlona Synod has only existed for a few years, since 2012 or 2011. Gregory's been at this for a much longer time, so you have time. John MC says, Tychicus, Hierodeacon Pachomius says, can't let Gregory have more parishes than us. All right, let's get to work. Tychicus, the Waldorf one sounds like something from Game of Thrones. Not wrong. Did you see the OCU priest with dreads? LOL. No, and I do not judge haircuts. I mean, dreads can happen just when you have long hair that starts getting matted. Did you reckon he's a white guy? John says, I did. You crow Bob Marley. Okay, that's unfair, guys. Seraphim, Alexei Trump and Anna Demidova were Roman Catholic and Protestant respectively. Well, I don't know how they died, but if the church says that they're martyrs, then I assume that they probably are. Hierodeacon Pachomius says yes. Hierodeacon Pachomius says Reconquista, that is hilariously awful. White people with dreads are the worst. They could just have made a pact not to wash their hair.
Before I started losing my hair, I used to go long periods without brushing it. I would just tie it behind my head. And then I would, what happens is that, if you've ever had long hair before and you got to brush your hair, because if you don't, it starts to turn into like strips of knots. And I'm not kidding.
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah.
And, now that I'm losing the back of my hair, I don't have to worry about it because all that fell out.
Oh, wow. Okay. Reconquista, helping keep the lights on with $4.99, says, let us never forget the memory of cats that were meowter by Pope Gregory the Ninth.
I don't know anything about that.
I thought it was a meowter. I'm sorry. I'm always down for a pun. So, all right, let's add that to the target. We are now below 600 at 595, and we're at 2 hours and 13 minutes. So we're probably going to be shutting down in the next 10 to 20 minutes. And let me just make sure to add that to Reconquista's total here. And thank you for helping support the channel. Oh, wait, the target's now grown to 5,950. That's not what I wanted at all. Although if someone's willing to throw in $5,000, please do. Okay, target 595. So thank you so much. Again, you don't always have to super chat if you want to avoid YouTube's 30% and donate directly. We really appreciate it. We will add it to the totals on the screen because you can also send support through PayPal or Cash App if you go to NFTU.net or through the big three cryptos or three of the biggest cryptos, BTC, LTC, and XMR. Or you can just use Give, Send, Go. And we appreciate it that way too.
I'm surprised you don't have Buy Me a Coffee.
I tried to use Buy Me a Coffee. It wouldn't work. They wouldn't allow me to create the thing. And I was like,
what is Buy Me a Coffee?
Buy Me a Coffee is another way to do tips. But Buy Me a Coffee is it's got something. There was something wrong with it. It wouldn't recognize my profile on YouTube or something, and so I couldn't use it. All right, let's see. Reconquista will definitely ask about Jewish doctors, but I will ask Father Joseph if Father Joseph knows the Jewish piano.
Oh goodness!
I don't know.
I think we met at J Quarter tonight.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. So you win. Leonidas said, so why did the Florinites take possession of the Holy Transfiguration Monastery in Kuvara and the Panagia Karatea Convent in Karatea from 1950 to 1955? I was pretty sure that at least the Karatea Convent, I don't know about the HTM in Kuvara, but Karatea remained under the sisterhood because they tried to take it through the court because that's why they put the abbess in jail, Mother Miriam, and that she had secretly in Synodia assigned a new abbess. So I don't know how that.
I always think the best thing to do when you ask these questions, if you know something about it, find the text, the actual 4 articles.
Yeah, so we can learn more about it because we have to kind of review
primary
all
sources.
The history. Yeah, absolutely, but we have to review it from primary sources.
Yeah.
Saint Seraphim's Rose's beard looked like dreads towards the end of his life. Also very true. Was Elder Ephraim of Katanukia T.O. I believe that's a different Elder Ephraim than the famous one that went over.
The one of the 1920s who was the adamant enemy of the name worshippers.
So I'm pretty sure he was.
I think he died in the 1920s. I don't know if he lived much longer than that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he was.
I think,
when will? Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying, I think that's the Elder Ephraim that wanted to be under Elder Joseph, but already had a spiritual father.
Okay.
Is that I think that's that one.
Okay. Well, Recton, he says, when will the cats be canonized by the Catholic Church, Pope Leo? I don't know. I don't know that you can't canonize in the Orthodox Church. You can't canonize animals, but anything's possible
You
over
ever
at
see
Rome.
those pictures from the medieval descriptions? They're actually real descriptions where they would put pigs on trial.
I have never seen that.
You ever seen the animal trial record?
Oh yeah.
There was this pig mother that apparently killed and ate one of her piglets, and the villagers put her on trial for murder, and then they slaughtered her. And anyway,
I think that might just be like an overreaction to actually seeing that and being so horrified. They're like, "This pig is a murderer."
Yes.
And then, or it could have been entertainment. I mean, putting a pig on trial, that's pretty funny stuff.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, one of the things you realize is people. This is one of the things I try to bring up in the discussion I had with Elwin about Haiti. When like us as like European people, as we look at all Haiti, like, oh, look how barbaric, and it is a lot of terrible things. But you start reading like medieval or like the Rose stuff, early stuff, it's like classical antiquity. You go to the Greek countryside, they were like burying puppies alive en masse because they felt it appeased the crossroads gods, which were actually demons.
Wow.
And such. St. Isidore Seville talking about the problems they had in Spain where they had to teach people not to keep these dolls and put pins into them and such. That a lot of this stuff we don't like, that is barbaric, and it's like or the Romans like attacking the Senones and like massacring 200,000 of them. Because I on Gab, there are these people who would send me these articles from this Frenchman called Laurent Guillon, who's like he really doesn't like the Old Testament. He's like some sort of weird, deist or whatever. And he's like, look at how the Old Testament was so barbaric, and that's not how European people. I was like, this guy has no idea what he's dealt with in terms of history and things like that. And even the claim that they were making that the Jews were unique in doing circumcision, which was totally fallacious, since the Egyptians practiced it, as was a lot of other people. And even the way they do not to get too explicit, but the way they do circumcision that people recognize, that was not even done by most Jews until the 2nd century AD. There was a totally different version they used. What they do with the circumcision now is more analogous to the Egyptian version. And
wow.
So it was only in the 3rd century BC that, under Hellenic influence, that the Egyptians restricted circumcision to the priest class and to their aristocracy and things like that. So
pigs on trial. Wow, that's like pigs on trial. That's like the dark history of barbecue.
Yeah.
Well,
if they're going to eat the pig, they got to find something wrong with it. Right?
Wow. John says the cash register. Atomic Lead says, "Oh, LOL." Gregory Stan says, "So do you think the MP ignored possible evidence that Alexei Trump may have converted to Orthodoxy prior to his execution?" I would say resoundingly yes.
Are they saying Alexei Trump?
Trump.
Okay, they're German names, right?
Yes.
Right. Okay.
And then Moreover Brethren wrote, "Oy vey, John has the chutzpah tonight." Okay. Gregory Stan says, "I heard a World Orthodox online use that as a gotcha against the true Orthodox." Yeah, they have lots of poor gotchas, but they don't really last under real scrutiny. Cyber Crepper says Ephraim was New Calendar and died in 1998. That is a different Ephraim. I knew people were going to think it was that Ephraim, and it's not. Leonidas with a member, he's a member, so his chat's on the screen. Says there haven't been any new true Orthodox saints since Blessed Andreas of Patras and Metropolitan Saint Vitaly Ustinov reposed in 2005 and 2006, respectively. I get where you're coming from. When people have that kind of my synod alone kind of thinking, you would feel that those were the only glorifications done.
There can only be one.
Yeah, but the simple reality is that from my perspective, where I look at things from every synod, every true Orthodox synod in the world's point of view, I have no reason to say that Saint Lucaria of Romania isn't a saint. I have no reason to say that Saint John of Shanghai isn't a saint. Saint Vitaly would be after. I'm not sure if Metropolitan Vitaly is a saint. I don't know who glorified him as saint. I know that Rocor A glorified all four as saint at one point. But I don't know. But I do respect it. I basically say, I'll say pray for us anyway. So, I just try to keep as broad a view as possible because in the end, I think a lot of our struggles here that we in this modern era have against each other are going to be seen as petty squabbles in heaven. And that's how the church has often seen it lately.
After coming from world orthodoxy, I kind of look for a cultus around the person. Because within world orthodoxy, they didn't really look for that. They kind of arbitrarily added people to the calendar that fit I would say, political agenda, to be honest.
Yeah. Black Ortho Acolyte says, Muhammad apparently had a monkey stoned for adultery, according to a hadith.
What?
If that's true, I really, really have questions about how demonic Islam is, considering Muhammad himself was a gigantic adulterer, but killed a little animal that doesn't know any better. I mean, between that and the dogs, I mean,
one of his wives was like very young.
So. Yeah, it's just such a. I feel sorry for people.
The scene of all these Islamic scholars in this courtroom, and then you have them arguing back and forth about the guilt of this monkey who's chained up, for adultery. I mean, it's
just gross.
Tragic comedy, I guess, right there.
Yeah, exactly.
Naughty monkey.
Hire Deacon Pacomia says, okay, but did it appease the crossroads gods, though? That's the real question. Pigs
I mean, demons.
Demons, come on, guys.
Yeah, I think the thing is that even if, let's say, like these demons do appear to these like pagan Greeks when they're burying alive all these puppies, or and sacrificing dogs, and supposedly some of them bury alive children, but that there's like various ancient Greek sources about cults doing that.
Yeah.
Pigs
on Trial was the prequel to Pigs in Space. He continued. Reconquista said, was there any pope after the schism that genuinely wanted to join the church in the East instead of ruling it? The last pope who kind of maybe negotiated would have been Clement III, and
that's not the papal Clement III.
Right? No, the real Clement III in the 11th century, and then from then on, no. Cyber Creppers, or what's the name of the Ephraim you were talking about? Leonidas said Ephraim of Catanakia. So yeah. All right. Well, let me see here. The only Ephraim of Catanakia I find is the new calendar monk who died in 1988. Is there any other distinguished?
Hold on. That may be there may be a different elder Ephraim from the 1920s.
Yeah, there was.
Well, I'm thinking it was. He was alive at the time of Elder Joseph the Hezekiah.
Correct. All right. John, and let me see here. Reconquista says to have meowter is pretty demonic, so the Catholic Church might be pretty demonic. It might be. John says, I'm leaving for the evening. Good night, Father Joseph and Father Boniface. Good night, Lydia Enoch. Your blessings.
God bless.
All right. And yeah, we're probably going to be getting out of here too. We are in the 25th minute of the second hour. And we really do appreciate everyone who supports the channel and has been helping out here. So this is great. Glory to God. We'll see if this is the right day. We'll try another day this week as well for live. That dog is going off for a while. It's probably because of Memorial Day. People are lighting fireworks outside, so the dog won't be quiet.
Okay, so so it is a different Ephraim.
Right.
The Ephraim of Cantonakia died in 1998, so that's definitely not who we're talking about.
No.
Okay. No. All right. So that's the one I'm talking about. He died like 1920, late 1920s. And
right.
He wrote a number of texts against Islavi. So
yeah.
But he was also called Elder Ephraim. I'd have to find more information about his material.
All right. Well, glory to God. I think we've had a pretty productive stream. And so, I'm going to just quickly say goodnight because this dog is going nuts and it's getting worse as the night goes on, I guess. So it should be getting worse for the next hour and a half. So again, I want to thank you to everyone. I want to thank our, Bishop Enoch. He used to be regular on the show here all the time. It's just that as a bishop, he's gotten busier and busier. So we're really grateful to have him for tonight. To Father Boniface, Reader John, to our listeners, to everyone who had questions and had comments, and those who support our mission, support the channel. We at NFTU need your help. Support us by subscribing or donating at nftu.net and on Give, Send, Go. We remember all of you in our prayers, and thank you for all the support for NFTU. And as always, don't forget to like and subscribe. Master bless.
The Lord bless. Christ is risen.
Truly
Really
is
is
risen.
risen.
Truly is risen.
Have a good night, everyone.